Hi guys, tonight we drift quietly into the frozen world of the Yukon gold rush. The sun is sinking fast behind the jagged white peaks. The air is turning very cold now, it feels like sharp needles against your cheeks. The wind is coming off the frozen river like a cold hand, finding every small gap in your heavy clothes. You can hear the dry frozen branches of the spruce trees snapping in the dark. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here, and if you want to let me know where you are listening from and what time it is where you are. I always love seeing those little snapshots of the world. Now dim the lights and let the story begin. You are standing in the middle of a great white silence. Everything around you is covered in thick, heavy snow. It is the year 1897, and you have come a very long way to find gold. To get here, you had to climb over the Chilkoot Pass. That was a giant mountain made of ice and rock. Thousands of other men were there with you, all carrying heavy loads on their backs, but now you are alone. The crowd has gone. Some went further down the river, and some went home. You have chosen the small patch of woods near the water to be your home for the long, dark winter. The cold here is not like the cold you knew back home. It is a deep, biting cold that wants to get inside your bones. People call it the White Death. If you do not have a roof over your head and a fire in your room, the cold will take your life before the sun comes up. You can feel it now, creeping through your boots. Your toes are starting to feel numb. You wiggle them inside your thick wool socks, trying to keep the blood moving. You are wearing a heavy Mackinaw coat. It is a thick jacket made of red and black checked wool. It is heavy and scratchy against your neck, but it is the only thing keeping you warm right now. This coat is your best friend. It has deep pockets where you keep your matches and a small knife. You pull the collar up high, right under your ears. The wool smells like sheep and old campfire smoke. It is a good, honest smell. It reminds you that you are still alive and still working. The sun has almost gone now. The sky is a deep, dark purple, and the first few stars are starting to blink. They look like tiny holes poked in a black blanket. There is no moon yet. You look around at the tall spruce trees. They look like giant ghosts standing in the snow. Their branches are weighed down by big clumps of white powder. Every now and then, a clump of snow falls from a high branch and hits the ground with a soft thump. In this quiet place, that small sound feels as loud as a gunshot. You take a deep breath. The air is so cold that it makes your chest ache. When you breathe out, a big cloud of white steam comes out of your mouth. It hangs in the air for a second before the wind whisks it away. You look at your hands. You are wearing thick mittens made of moose hide. They are tough and strong. Inside the mittens, your hands are warm, but you know you cannot keep standing still. If you stop moving, the cold will win. You have a big pack sitting in the snow at your feet. Inside that pack are all the things you need to stay alive. You have a heavy steel axe with a sharp edge. You have a long saw with big teeth for cutting through thick wood. You have a bag of flour, some dried beans, and a small tin of tea leaves. These things are more precious than gold right now. You cannot eat gold, and you cannot build a house with it. You look at the ground. You need to find a place to build your cabin. It cannot be too close to the river, or the spring floods will wash it away. It cannot be too far from the trees, or you will have to drag the heavy logs too far. You walk a few steps forward. The snow is very deep. It comes all the way up to your knees. Each step is hard work. You have to lift your leg high and push down into the soft, cold powder. Crunch, crunch, crunch. That is the only sound in the world right now. The sound of your boots breaking the crust of the snow. You stop for a moment to rest. You lean your back against a large tree. The bark is rough and cold. You look up at the tall trunk. This tree has been here for a long time. It has seen many winters. It is strong and straight. You think about how this tree will soon become a wall for your house. It will keep the wind out and the heat in. You feel a little bit of hope. It is a small, warm feeling in your chest. The sinus here is very big. In the city, there is always noise. There are horses on the street, people talking, and the sound of bells. But here, there is nothing. It is so quiet that you can hear the sound of your own heart beating. Thump, 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 thump. It is a steady, slow sound. You feel very small in this giant land of ice and trees. The Yukon is a place that does not care if you are there or not. It does not care if you find gold or if you go hungry. You have to take care of yourself. You reach down and touch the handle of your axe. The wood is smooth and cold. You know that tomorrow your work will truly begin. You will have to cut down many trees. You will have to lift heavy logs until your arms ache. You will have to work from the moment the sun comes up until it goes down again. But tonight, you just need to survive. You look back at the trail you made in the snow. Your footprints look like deep blue holes in the white ground. You are the only person for miles. There is a strange kind of peace in there. You don't have to talk to anyone. You don't have to listen to anyone's problems. It is just you, the trees, and the cold. You find a small spot where the wind isn't blowing quite so hard. You clear away a bit of snow with your boots until you reach the frozen dirt. You will make a very small fire here, just to warm your hands and boil some water for tea. You find some dry twigs under the bottom branches of a spruce tree. They are thin and brittle. They snap easily in your fingers. You take off one mitten and reach into your pocket for a match. Your fingers turn red the moment the air hits them. You have to be quick. You strike the match against a flat stone. A tiny yellow flame jumps to life. It looks so small and weak against the giant dark woods. You hold it close to the dry twigs. For a second, nothing happens. Then, a tiny curl of grey smoke rises up. The flame catches a piece of bark. It grows bigger. It turns orange and bright. You put your mitten back on and watch the fire. It is only a small fire, but it makes you feel much better. You hold your hands out toward the heat. Even through the thick moose hide, you can feel the warmth. It is the best feeling in the world. You look at the orange light dancing on the white snow. It makes the shadows of the trees move back and forth. You take your small tin pot and fill it with clean, white snow. You set the pot on a flat rock next to the fire. You watch as the snow starts to melt. It turns into clear water. Soon, small bubbles start to rise from the bottom. The water begins to boil. You drop in a pinch of black tea leaves. The smell is wonderful. It smells like home. It smells like a place where the wind doesn't bite and the ground isn't made of ice. You sit there on your pack, sipping the hot tea. The cup is warm against your palms. The tea is bitter and strong, but it warms your throat and your belly. You look around at the dark woods. You are not afraid. You are ready. You have your tools, you have your strength, and you have a plan. Tomorrow, you will start to build. You will make a place that is safe. You will build a wall against the white death. As you sit in the dark, you think about the logs you will cut. You think about the moss you will gather. You think about the smell of the wood smoke coming from your own chimney. The stars are bright above you. The air is still. You take one last sip of tea and feel the warmth spread all the way down to your toes. The first night in the Yukon is hard, but you have made it. You are still here, the watchman of your own small life in the great wide north. The morning light comes slowly to the Yukon. It is not a bright yellow light like you see in the south. Instead, it is a pale, soft grey that creeps over the tops of the mountains. You wake up inside your heavy wool blankets. Your breath has turned to a thin layer of frost on the edge of the fabric near your face. You reach out a hand and touch it. It feels like cold dust. You do not want to leave the warmth of your blankets, but you know you must. The sun will only be up for a few hours today, and you have much to do. You stand up and stretch. Your muscles feel a bit stiff from sleeping on the hard ground. You kick your feet against a tree trunk to get the blood flowing into your toes again. The air is very still this morning. There is no wind, but the cold is still there, waiting for you. It is a quiet, heavy cold. You look around at the woods. Everything is white and silver. Now you must find the perfect place for your cabin. This is a very important choice. If you build in the wrong spot, you will have big problems later. You begin to walk through the deep snow. You are looking for a piece of ground that is flat. If the ground is not flat, your cabin will lean to one side. A leaning cabin is hard to live in. The door might stick or the logs might slide apart. As you walk, you use a long stick to poke down through the snow. You want to feel what is underneath. In this part of the world, there is something called permafrost. This is a simple fact of the north. The ground deep down is frozen solid all year long. Even in the summer, when the top of the dirt gets warm, the deep ground stays as hard as a rock. You need to find a spot where the ground feels steady. You do not want to build on a place that will turn into a swamp when the spring sun finally arrives. You move closer to the edge of the woods. You want to be near the trees so you can get wood for your fire easily. But you also want to be near the river. The river is your road. In the winter, the river is frozen, and you can walk on it like a wide pavement. In the summer, You can use a boat to carry your things. You find a small rise in the land. It is about 20 paces away from the water. It is high enough that the spring floods will not reach you, but close enough that you can carry buckets of water back to your door. You take off your heavy pack and set it down. You reach inside and pull out a large, heavy bowl made of dark metal. This is your gold pan. Most people think a gold pan is only for finding tiny bits of yellow metal in the water. But out here, your tools have many jobs. Today, your gold pan is a shovel. You hold the edges with your mittens and begin to scrape the snow away from the ground. The work is slow. The snow is light and fluffy, but there is so much of it. You bend your knees and push the pan into the white drifts. You lift the snow and toss it to the side. Swoosh, swoosh. You do this over and over again. You can feel the heat building up in your shoulders. You start to feel a little bit of sweat on your back. This is dangerous. In the Yukon, you must never sweat. If your clothes get wet from sweat, they will freeze when you stop moving. You must work slowly and carefully. You take a breath and slow down your pace. After an hour of digging, you can see the dark ground. It is covered in a layer of frozen moss and old brown leaves. You clear a square space that is about 10 feet wide and 12 feet long. This will be the size of your home. It is not big, but a small cabin is easier to keep warm. A big room takes too much wood to heat, and you do not want to spend every minute of your life cutting trees. You stand in the middle of your cleared square. You look at the dirt beneath your boots. This small patch of earth will be your whole world for many months. You look up at the sky. The pale sun is low, hanging just above the trees. It gives no heat, but it is beautiful to look at. You take a moment to just be still. There is a deep silence here. It is a silence so heavy that you can almost feel it pressing against your ears. There are no birds singing. There are no insects buzzing. The animals are all hiding, keeping warm in their burrows or under the thick branches of the trees. You are the only thing moving in this white forest. It's a strange feeling to be so far away from other people. You think about the cities you have seen, with their crowded streets and loud noises. Here, there is only the sound of your own breath. You feel very small, but you also feel very strong. You are the master of this small square of ground. You go back to your pack and find a piece of string. You use it to mark the corners of your cabin. You find 4 straight sticks and poke them into the frozen ground. Now you can see where the walls will go. You can see where you will put your bed and where your stove will sit. It starts to feel real. It is not just a plan anymore. It is the beginning of a home. You look at your hands. The moose hide mittens are covered in white frost from the snow. You beat them together to clear it off. Clap, clap. The sound echoes off the trees. You feel a sense of pride. You have found your spot. You have cleared the ground. You have made a start. The light is already starting to fade. The days are very short here. You know you have to work fast tomorrow. You will need to start cutting down the trees. You look at the tall spruce trees nearby. They are thick and straight. They have grown for many years, reaching up for the sun. Now they will help you stay warm. You walk back to your small camp from last night. You move slowly, feeling the weight of the day in your legs. You are hungry, but you feel good. You have a place to stay. You have a foundation. As you sit down to start your small evening fire, you look back at the square you cleared in the snow. In the dim light, it looks like a dark hole in a white sheet. But to you, it looks like safety. You pull out a piece of hardtack from your pocket. Hardtack is a very simple food. It is a hard, dry biscuit made of flour and water. It is as hard as a piece of wood, and you have to soak it in your tea to make it soft enough to eat. It does not have much taste, but it fills your stomach. As you chew on the softened bread, you watch the stars begin to come out again. The cold is coming back, stronger than before, but you are ready for it. You have your ground. You have your plan. Tomorrow, the walls will begin to rise. The morning air is so cold it feels like a physical weight on your shoulders. You stand at the edge of the clearing you made yesterday. The square in the snow looks like a tiny island in a vast sea of white. You know that today is the day the cabin truly begins. To have walls, you must have wood. You turn your back on the clearing and walk toward the thickest part of the forest. The snow is deep here, and the spruce trees stand close together, their branches locked like frozen fingers. You are looking for a specific kind of tree. In the Yukon, the white spruce is the most important tree for a miner. This is a simple fact of the North. Spruce wood is light enough to carry but strong enough to hold up a heavy roof. It grows straight and tall, reaching for the dim winter sun. You need trees that are about as thick as your waist. If they are too thin, the walls will be weak. If they are too thick, you will not be able to lift them into place. You find the tree you want. It is a giant. Its trunk is straight as an arrow, and it goes up so high you have to tilt your head back to see the top. You reach out and touch the bark. It is rough and scaly, and it feels like ice. You can see little drops of frozen sap on the trunk. This sticky sap is called resin. In the summer, it smells sweet and sharp, but now it is frozen hard, like little yellow glass beads. You set your pack down in the snow and reach for your most important tool, your felling axe. This is a heavy axe with a long, smooth wooden handle made of hickory. The head of the axe is made of dark steel, and the edge is as sharp as a razor. You do not just start swinging. First, you must take care of the tool. You pull a small round stone from your pocket. This is a whetstone. It is a grey stone used to keep the metal edge perfect. You sit on a fallen log for a moment and rub the stone against the axe blade. Scritch, scritch, scritch. The sound is small and steady in the big quiet of the woods. You are very careful with your fingers. If you cut yourself out here, there is no doctor to help you. You have to be your own doctor, your own builder, and your own guard. You spit on the stone and keep rubbing until the steel shines in the pale light. Now, the axe is ready. You stand up and take your position in front of the big spruce. You have to clear the snow away from the base of the tree first. You use your boots to kick the white powder aside until you can see the roots disappearing into the frozen ground. You take a deep breath. Your lungs feel the sting of the cold, but your body is starting to wake up. You grip the axe handle tight with your moose-hide mittens. You swing the axe for the first time. Thwack! The sound is loud. It echoes through the trees, bouncing off the mountain behind you. A small chip of white wood flies out and lands in the snow. It looks like a little piece of bone against the white. You swing again. Thwack! Another chip flies. You are cutting a V shape into the side of the tree. This is called the notch. You want the tree to fall away from you toward the clearing. You work with a steady rhythm. Swing, hit, pull back. Swing, hit, pull back. Your arms begin to feel the strain. The weight of the axe starts to feel heavier with every hit. You remember what you told yourself yesterday. Do not sweat. You slow down. You take a break after every 5 swings. You look at the cut you are making. The inside of the tree is a beautiful pale cream color. It smells wonderful, a clean, sharp scent of pine and cold air. As you work, you think about the night shift. Out here, the work never really stops. Even when you are sleeping, your mind is thinking about the wood you need and the fire you must keep. You are the watchman of your own survival. You look at your Mackinaw coat. There is a small bit of frost forming on the wool near your mouth. The world is so still. You stop for a moment and just listen. There is no sound at all. No wind, no birds, no distant voices. It is a moment of perfect silence. You feel like you are the only person on the whole planet. It is a big thought, and it makes you feel a little bit lonely, but also very proud. You are doing something very hard. You are building a life out of nothing but trees and snow. You go back to work. You move to the other side of the tree to make the back cut. This is the cut that will let the tree tip over. You are careful now. You listen for the sound of the wood cracking. You watch the top of the tree against the sky. If the branches start to shake, you know it is time to move. Crack. It is a small sound, like a dry twig snapping under a boot. You stop. You look up. The top of the tree is moving very slowly. It looks like it is drawing a line across the sky. Then comes a louder sound. Creak. The wood is groaning under its own weight. You take 3 big steps back into the deep snow, keeping your eyes on the giant trunk. Timber, you whisper to the empty forest. The tree begins to fall. It starts slow, then moves faster and faster. The heavy branches rush through the air with a sound like a great wind. Whoosh! Then the tree hits the ground. Boom! The earth under your boots shakes. A huge cloud of white snow jumps into the air, hiding the tree for a second. It looks like a white explosion. When the snow settles, the giant tree is lying flat on the ground. It looks even bigger now that it is down. You walk over to it. The branches are crushed underneath, and the air is thick with the smell of fresh wood. You have done it. You have the first piece of your home. You feel a deep sense of tiredness in your arms. but you also feel a spark of excitement. This one tree will give you 2 or maybe 3 good logs for your walls, but you will need many more. You look at the forest. There is so much work ahead of you. You take your axe and start to chop off the branches. This is called limbing. You move down the trunk, swinging the axe to clear away the green boughs. Each branch you cut falls into the snow. You save the small leafy ones. These spruce feathers are soft and smell good. Later, you can use them to make a soft floor or even a bed. Nothing is wasted in the Yukon. Every part of the tree has a job to do. The sun is starting to move behind the trees again. The light is turning a soft, dusty orange. You realize you have been working for hours. Your belly feels empty, and your hands are cold inside your mittens. You decide to stop for now. You have felled your first tree. You have cleared the branches. Tomorrow you will peel the bark and start the long job of moving the wood to your clearing. You walk back to your small camp, dragging your axe behind you in the snow. You look back at the fallen spruce. It looks like a sleeping giant. You feel a little bit sorry for cutting it down, but you know it is the only way to stay safe from the white death. As the first stars begin to show their faces, you reach your small fire pit. You are tired, but your heart is steady. You are building. You are surviving. You are the watchman of the Yukon night. The world is still a pale, soft grey when you return to your fallen tree. The air feels very thin today, and every time you take a breath, the cold makes your nose tingle. You stand over the giant spruce you felled yesterday. Over the night, a fresh layer of light snow has fallen, covering the dark bark like a thin white sheet. Your first job today is to clean this log. You cannot build a home with logs that are messy and covered in bark. You reach into your pack and pull out a tool with 2 wooden handles. This is called a draw knife. It is a long, flat piece of sharp steel with a handle on each end. It looks a bit like a giant straight razor. You hold one handle in each hand and pull the blade toward your body to shave off the wood. It is a very simple tool, but it is one of the best things a man can have in the woods. Before you can use the draw knife, you have to clear away the snow. You use your mittens to brush the white powder off the top of the trunk. The snow is so cold that it does not even feel wet. It feels like dry sand. As you brush it away, the dark, rough bark of the spruce comes into view. You see the deep lines in the bark and the sticky bits of frozen sap. This tree was alive for a long time, and the bark was its armor. It kept the tree safe from the wind and the bugs. But now you must take that armor off. A simple fact of building in the Yukon is that you must always peel your logs. If you leave the bark on, tiny bugs called wood borers will crawl inside. They will eat the wood and turn your walls into dust over time. Also, bark holds onto water. If the logs stay wet under the bark, they will rot and turn soft. To make a cabin that lasts through the long winter, you need the wood to be clean and dry. You lean over the log and set the blade of the draw knife against the bark. You pull back with your arms. Squeak. Whirrip! A long strip of bark curls up and falls into the snow. The sound is very satisfying. Underneath the dark bark, the wood is a beautiful, bright cream color. It is so clean and smooth that it almost looks like it is glowing in the dim light. You move down the log, one step at a time. Pull, rip, step. Pull, rip, step. The work is very hard on your back and your shoulders. You have to bend over the log, using your whole body to pull the blade through the tough skin of the tree. The bark is thick in some places and thin in others. Sometimes the blade gets stuck on a knot in the wood. A knot is a hard, dark circle where a branch once grew. You have to pull extra hard to get the knife through those spots. As you work, the smell of the tree fills the air. It is a very strong, fresh smell. It smells like the deep forest and cold water. It is a clean scent that makes you feel a bit more awake. You look down at the ground. The white snow is now covered in dark brown strips of bark and yellow curls of fresh wood. It looks like a mess, but to you, it is progress. You are uncovering the bones of your house. You stop for a moment to rest your back. You stand up straight and put your hands on your hips. You look out over the valley. The sun is trying to peek over the mountains, but it is struggling. The light is a soft, dusty purple. Everything is so quiet. You can hear the sound of your own breathing. It is a slow, steady sound. In this moment you feel a deep peace. You are far away from the noise of the world. There are no people shouting about gold, no dogs barking, and no clatter of machines. There is only you and the wood. You look at your mittens. They are covered in tiny bits of wood and frozen sap. The sap is very sticky even in the cold. It sticks to the moose hide and turns into a dark gummy mess. Back in the city, people might think this is dirty, but here, it is the mark of a hard worker. You rub your hands together to try and clear some of it off. You think about the night shift again. Even though it is day, it feels like the world is still asleep. The sun never really gets high in the sky. It just skims along the horizon like a stone skipped across a pond. You are working while the sun is resting. You have to be the watchman of your own time. You cannot waste a single minute of this pale light. You go back to the log. You have peeled about half of it now. You move to the other side and start again. The draw knife makes a rhythmic sound. Shh, 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 shh. It is like a heartbeat. You start to lose track of time. You focus only on the blade and the wood. You watch the way the light catches the smooth surface of the peeled log. It looks like silk. As you peel, you find a small hole in the wood where a beetle once lived. You scrape it away until the wood is solid again. You want every inch of this log to be perfect. This log will be the base of your wall. It will sit on the ground and hold up all the other logs. It has to be the strongest one. The air is getting a bit colder as the afternoon comes. You can feel the chill creeping through your mackinaw coat. You move a little faster to keep your blood warm. You are almost at the end of the log now. The last few feet of bark come off in one long, satisfying strip. You let out a long breath of white steam. You stand back and look at your work. The log is now completely clean. It is a long, smooth cylinder of pale wood. It looks beautiful against the white snow and the dark trees. It no longer looks like a fallen tree. It looks like a piece of a building. You reach out and run your mitten along the surface. It is smooth and cold. You still have a lot of rubbish to clear. You use your boots to push the piles of bark away from the log. You don't want to trip on them later. You also clear more snow from around the log so you can get a good grip on it tomorrow. Moving this log will be the hardest part yet. It is heavy and the snow is deep. But for now you are finished with this step. You look up at the sky. The purple light is turning to a deep, dark blue. The stars are starting to come out again. They look like tiny, cold sparks. You feel a great sense of pride. You have taken a piece of the wild forest and turned it into something useful. You have cleaned the wood. You have prepared the way. You pick up your draw knife and your axe and start the walk back to your small camp. Your legs feel heavy and your arms are tired, but you have a good feeling in your chest. You are one step closer to having a roof. You are one step closer to being safe from the White Death. As you walk, you think about the warmth of your blankets and the taste of hot tea. The forest is dark and silent, but you are not afraid. You are the watchman of the Yukon, and you are doing your job well. You stand over your peeled log as the pale morning light touches the forest floor. It is a beautiful thing to see, so clean and bright against the dark trees. But now comes the hardest part of the work. You must move this heavy piece of wood from where it fell to the square of dark ground you cleared for your cabin. It is only a short distance, perhaps 50 paces, but in the deep snow, every step feels like a mile. In the Yukon, most miners did not have horses or oxen to help them. This is a simple fact of the history here. A man had to be his own horse. You had to use your own muscles and your own clever ideas to move things that were much heavier than you. If you were lucky, you had a partner to help you, but you are doing this alone. You have to be the watchman of your own strength. You reach into your pack and pull out a long, heavy rope. It is made of hemp. Hemp is a plant with very strong fibers that people twist together to make thick cord. This rope is rough and brown. It smells like dry grass and a little bit like dust. It is very scratchy against your mittens, but it is incredibly strong. You know this rope will not break, even if you pull with everything you have. You tie one end of the rope around the thickest part of the log. You use a timber hitch, which is a special kind of knot that gets tighter the harder you pull. It is a smart knot that has been used by woodsmen for hundreds of years. You wrap the other end of the rope around your chest and shoulders, over your thick mackinaw coat. You want the weight to be spread out so the rope doesn't dig too deep into your skin. You also pick up a peavey. You see this tool leaning against a nearby tree. It is a big, heavy wooden pole with a sharp metal spike and a curved metal hook at the end. You use it to roll the log and get it moving. You push the spike into the wood and pull back on the handle. Creak. The log moves just an inch or two. It is very heavy. It feels like it is stuck to the earth. The snow is actually your friend today. In the summer, you would have to drag this log over rocks and dirt, which would be almost impossible. but in the winter, the snow is slippery. It acts like a giant sheet of ice that helps the wood slide. You just have to get it started. You plant your boots firmly in the snow. You lean forward, putting all your weight into the rope. You feel the rope pull tight against your chest. Your heart begins to beat faster. 1, 2, 3, pull. Pull, you whisper. The log doesn't move. You try again. You dig your heels deep into the frozen ground beneath the snow. You lean so far forward that you are almost touching the ground. You feel the muscles in your legs start to burn. You give one giant heave. Shush! The log moves. It slides forward a few inches. The sound of wood on snow is very soft, like a long sigh. You don't stop. You keep your legs moving, taking tiny shuffling steps. Step, pull. Step, pull. You are moving very slowly, like a snail across a garden path. Behind you, the log leaves a wide, smooth trail in the white snow. It looks like a giant snake has crawled through the woods. After only 10 paces, you have to stop. Your breath is coming in big white clouds. You are starting to feel very warm inside your coat. You remember the rule. Do not sweat. You reach up and loosen the scarf around your neck to let some of the heat out. You stand perfectly still, letting your heart slow down. This is a moment of atmospheric reflection. You look back at the trail you have made. In the quiet of the woods, your own footprints look very deep. You can see the dark shadows of the trees stretching out across the snow. The sun is so low that the shadows are very long and thin. They look like dark fingers pointing the way home. There is no sound at all. Even the wind has stopped. It feels as if the whole world is holding its breath, watching you work. You feel very small in this big, empty land, but you also feel a deep sense of power. You are moving a mountain, 1 inch at a time. You turn back to your task. You use the peavey to roll the log over a small bump in the ground. Clunk. The wood hits the snow on the other side. You grab the rope again and lean into the weight. You find a rhythm. You count your steps in your head. 1, 2, 3, 4. You think about the cabin walls. You think about how this log will sit at the very bottom, holding everything else up. It is worth the work. As you get closer to the clearing, the ground gets a little bit steeper. You have to be very careful. You do not want the log to start sliding on its own and hit you. You move to the side of the trail and pull from an angle. You are using your brain to stay safe. In the Yukon, being smart is just as important as being strong. You finally reach the edge of the cleared square. You give one last, mighty pull, and the log slides onto the dark dirt. You let out a long breath and drop the rope. Your arms feel like they're made of lead. You sit down on the log for a moment. The wood is cold, but it feels solid and good. You have moved the first piece of your house. You look at the rope. The hemp fibers are slightly frayed from the pull. You run your mitten over the rope, feeling the texture. This simple piece of string is what made the work possible. You think about the people who made the rope, far away in a warmer place. They probably never imagined it would be used to build a home in the middle of a frozen wilderness. The sun is starting to dip behind the peaks. The light is turning a pale, icy blue. You know you have many more logs to move. Each one will be just as heavy. Each one will require the same hard work. But you are not discouraged. You have proven to yourself that you can do it. You have the tools and you have the will. You stand up and shake the snow off your trousers. You pick up the peavey and the rope. You will head back to the fallen tree and prepare the next log for tomorrow. You walk back along the wide trail you made. It is much easier to walk now that the snow has been packed down by the log. It is like having your own little private road through the forest. The Yukon night is coming fast. You can feel the temperature dropping already. The air feels sharper, like it is turning into glass. But you are warm from your work. You are the watchman of the woods, and your work is only just beginning. You look forward to the day when these logs are stacked high and a fire is burning inside. For now, there is only the rope, the wood, and the long white trail. You stand in the center of your small clearing. The 4 largest logs are now lying in the snow, waiting for you. These are the most important logs of all. In the world of building, these are called the sill logs. They are the foundation. They are the part of the house that touches the earth. If these logs are not straight and true, the whole house will be crooked. You take a moment to look at the dark, frozen ground. You have cleared away the white snow and the brown leaves, and now the earth is ready to hold the weight of your new home. A simple fact of history in the Yukon is that most miners built their homes without using a single iron nail. Nails were very heavy and very expensive to carry over the high mountain passes. A bag of nails could weigh as much as a bag of food, and most men chose the food. Instead of nails, you must use the weight of the wood itself and the way the logs fit together to keep the walls standing. It is a very clever way to build. It means the house can move a little bit as the ground freezes and thaws, but it will never fall down. You walk over to the first log. This is the longest and heaviest one. You have to move it to the edge of your cleared square. You use your PV, that big wooden pole with a metal hook, to roll it into place. Crunch. Thud. The log hits the frozen dirt. You can feel the vibration in the soles of your boots. It sounds solid. It sounds like the beginning of something that will last. You move to the other end and push until the log is perfectly lined up with the sticks you put in the ground yesterday. Now you reach into your tool bag and pull out a very special object. It is a spirit level. This is a simple tool made of a block of polished wood with a small glass tube set into the middle. Inside the glass tube is a bit of clear liquid and one tiny bubble of air. You place the level on top of the log. You lean down low, your nose almost touching the cold wood, to look at the glass. You see the little bubble dancing back and forth. The bubble is not in the center. It is leaning to the left. This means the ground under the log is not flat. You cannot leave it like this. If the base is not level, the roof will be slanted and the rain will not run off properly. You pick up your small hand shovel and dig a little bit of the frozen dirt away from the high side. The ground is hard like stone, and you have to use a lot of force. Every time the metal hits the earth, it makes a sharp clink sound. You clear away the rubbish and the small frozen rocks until you think it is right. You roll the log back into the groove you made. You check the spirit level again. You watch the little bubble as it slides slowly across the glass. It stops right in the middle, between two thin black lines. You let out a breath of relief. One log is down. It is perfectly flat. You feel a small sense of victory. It is just one piece of wood, but it is the first piece of your floor. You move to the second log. This one will go on the opposite side of the square. You repeat the process. You roll it, you check the level, and you dig the hard ground. Your arms are starting to feel the heavy work. The muscles in your back are pulling tight, and your shoulders feel warm. You are careful not to move too fast. You take a break and sit down on the first log. The forest is very still. You look up at the sky. The light is a soft, pale grey, like the colour of a pigeon's wing. There is no wind at all today. The tall trees around you are not moving even an inch. It is a moment of deep silence. You can hear a small creek somewhere far away, hidden under the ice, making a tiny gurgling sound. It is a lonely sound, but it is also very beautiful. You feel like the only person in the world who is awake. You are the watchman of this quiet valley, making sure that everything is built just right. You look down at your boots. They're covered in fine brown dust from the frozen earth. You think about the men who lived here before you. They also built small houses out of logs. They also sat on these same kinds of trees to rest their tired legs. You feel a connection to them. You are all doing the same thing, trying to stay warm and safe in a land that is very cold and very big. You stand up and get back to work. You bring the third log over. This one is shorter because it will form the end of the cabin. You have to lift one end of it and set it on top of the first two logs. This is where the corners begin. You don't just stack them like blocks. You have to make sure they are square. You use a long piece of string to measure from one corner to the opposite corner. Then you measure the other way. If the numbers are the same, your house is a perfect rectangle. You pull the string tight. It makes a thin, singing sound in the air. You check the corners. You move the logs an inch this way and an inch that way until the shape is just right. You are being very fussy, but you know it is important. A good builder is a slow builder. You want this cabin to be your fortress. You want it to keep out the frost and the wind. You look at the 4 logs lying on the ground. They form a large empty box. It does not look like much yet, but you can see it in your mind. You can see where the door will be. You can see where you will sit by the fire. You reach out and touch the wood. It is cold and rough. You can see the marks where your jaw knife shaved off the bark. You can see the grain of the wood, the little lines that tell the story of how the tree grew over many years. Your hands are getting cold now. Even through the moose-hide mittens, the chill of the logs is starting to seep in. You rub your hands together to keep the blood moving. Scrub, scrub, scrub. The leather makes a dry, rasping sound. You decide to check the level one last time. You walk all the way around the square, placing the wooden level on each log. The little bubble stays in the center every time. You have done a good job. The base is set. The sun is starting to hide behind the mountains again. The shadows are getting very long and blue. The air feels a bit heavier now as the night starts to move in. You look at your work and feel a deep sense of peace. The hardest part of the foundation is finished. You have the bones of your house resting on the earth. They are not going anywhere. They are heavy and strong, and they are perfectly flat. You pick up your spirit level and put it carefully back into your bag. This tool is very delicate, and you must protect the glass. You gather up your string and your shovel. You look around the clearing one last time. The 4 logs look like a dark frame on the white snow. Tomorrow you will start the notching. You will carve the wood so the logs can lock together like the fingers of 2 hands. But for now, you are finished. You walk back to your small campfire spot. Your legs feel a bit shaky from all the heavy lifting, but it is a good kind of tired. You have built the base. You have laid the first logs. You have made a promise to the ground that you are staying here for the winter. As you start to boil your water for tea, you look at the stars. They are very bright tonight. They look like diamonds scattered on black velvet. You are the watchman of the night shift, and you are building your way to safety, 1 log at a time. The air is so cold this morning that your eyelashes feel heavy with frost. You stand at the corner of your log square, looking down at the place where 2 logs meet. Up until now they have just been resting near each other, but to make a wall they must become one. They must lock together so tightly that even the strongest Yukon wind cannot blow through the gap. This is the art of notching. It is a simple way of carving the wood so the logs fit together like a puzzle. In the history of the North, the saddle notch was the most common shape used by miners. It is a simple fact that this notch looks just like the seat you would put on a horse. You carve a round hollow into the bottom of the top log so it sits snugly over the rounded back of the bottom log. When you do it right, the wood grips the wood and the weight of the whole wall presses the joint together. The heavier the house gets, the stronger the corners become. It is a clever way to build a fortress without using a single bolt or screw. You reach into your toolkit and pull out a pair of log screwers. This is a micro-history detail of a builder's life. A scriber is a metal tool that looks a bit like a large compass you might use in school. It has 2 legs that can be set to a specific width. You use it to trace the shape of the bottom log onto the top log. You run 1 leg along the curved surface of the wood below, while the other leg marks a line on the wood above. This shows you exactly where you need to cut. It is a quiet, careful job. You move slowly, making sure your line is steady. Once the line is marked, you pick up your small hand axe. This axe is lighter than the one you used to fell the trees. It has a shorter handle, which gives you more control. You start by making small vertical cuts inside the lines you drew. Tock, tock, tock. The sound is sharp and rhythmic. You are not swinging hard, you are being gentle, like a stone carver. You want to remove just a little bit of wood at a time. After the small cuts are made, you use the blade to chip away the pieces. The spruce wood is frozen, which makes it brittle. It snaps away in clean, white flakes that look like oversized oatmeal. You can smell the fresh sap again as you reach the heart of the log. It is a sticky, sweet smell that hangs in the cold air. You work your way deeper into the log, following the curve of the saddle shape. You want the hollow to be smooth and even. You stop for a moment to rest your hands. Your fingers are a bit stiff inside your moose-hide mittens, so you tuck them under your armpits for a minute to warm them up. The silence of the Yukon morning is absolute. There is no wind to rustle the needles of the spruce trees. You look at the notch you have carved. It is a clean, deep scoop in the pale wood. It looks like a small cradle. You feel a sense of calm. You are not rushing. You are taking your time to make sure the work is honest and strong. You decide it is time to test the fit. You move to the end of the top log and lift it. It is very heavy, and you have to use your legs to do the work. You groan a little with the effort as you swing the log over and drop it into the notch. Clunk. The sound is deep and solid. You look closely at the joint. There is a small gap on the left side. It is not perfect yet. You lift the log back off and set it on the ground. You look at the wood and see where the high spots are. You take your axe and shave off a few more thin curls of wood. You are like a tailor fitting a coat. You want there to be no space for the white death to creep in. You lift the log again and set it back down. This time it fits much better. The wood sits tight against the wood. You can barely see the line where they meet. You move to the other end of the log and start the process all over again. Every corner of the cabin needs 2 notches, one on the bottom and one on the top. By the time you are finished, you will have carved dozens of these joints. It is a lot of work for one man, but it is the only way to build a home that will not fall. As you work, you notice a small grey bird landing on a nearby branch. It is a Canada jay, though some miners call them camp robbers. It sits very still, watching you with its dark eyes. It seems curious about the noise and the wood chips flying through the air. You whistle a low note at it, and it tilts its head. It is nice to have a little bit of company in the big, lonely woods. Even a small bird makes the forest feel less empty. The sun is beginning to make its short trip across the sky. The light is a dusty gold now, reflecting off the white snow and the pale, notched logs. You look at your progress. 2 logs are now locked together at the corner. They are not just sitting there, they are joined. You reach out and try to shake the top log. It does not move even a fraction of an inch. It is solid as a rock. You think about the night shift workers back in the big cities. Right now, there are men lighting street lamps or watching over factories. You are the watchman of this forest. Your job is to make sure this cabin is built to last through the howling blizzards that are coming. Every notch you carve is a layer of protection. Every chip of wood you remove is a step towards safety. You pick up your scribers and move to the next corner. Your back is starting to ache from the bending, but you don't mind. The work is satisfying. There is something very good about working with your hands, using simple tools to solve big problems. You feel a deep connection to the wood and the land. You are not just a visitor here anymore. You are a builder. You are making your mark on the Yukon. The cold is starting to sharpen as the afternoon wanes. You can feel it through your thick wool socks. You decide to do one more notch before the light goes. You find your rhythm again. Mark, cut, chip. Mark, cut, chip. The pile of white shavings at your feet grows higher. You are building the corners of your life, piece by piece, in the heart of the frozen wild. The walls of your cabin are starting to grow. You have finished the base, and now you are stacking the logs higher and higher. Each new log you bring to the clearing feels like a victory. You move from being a ground worker to being a builder of heights. As the logs rise, the shape of your home becomes clear. It is no longer just a square on the ground. It is a space that you can step inside. You can see the world from within your own 4 walls. In the history of the Yukon, this part of the job was often called the long lift. This is because every log you add to the wall must be lifted higher than the one before it. A simple fact of building is that the higher the wall goes, the harder your muscles have to work. When the wall is at your waist, you can lift the wood with your arms. But when the wall reaches your chest or your shoulders, you have to use your whole body. You have to be clever so you do not hurt yourself. To help with the lifting, you use 2 long straight poles as a ramp. You lean these poles against the top of the wall. This is a simple machine called an inclined plane. You tie your hemp rope around the new log and throw the ends of the rope over the wall. You stand on the inside of the cabin and pull. As you pull, the log slides up the poles. Scrape, 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 scrape. The sound of wood rubbing on wood is loud in the quiet forest. You pull with a steady beat, moving your feet back into the dark dirt as the log rises toward the sky. You reach a point where the log is at the very top. You have to be very careful here. If the log slips, it could fall on you or roll away into the deep snow. You use your peavey to nudge the log over the edge and into its place. Thud. The whole wall shakes just a little bit. You feel the strength of the building. It is heavy, solid, and real. You walk around the outside, checking the corners. You want to make sure the walls stay straight and do not lean outward. You pull a small tool from your pocket called a plumb bob. This is a microhistory detail of a careful builder. It is just a heavy piece of lead shaped like a pear, hanging from a thin string. You hold the string against the top log and let the weight hang down. If the string is perfectly parallel to the wall, you know your cabin is standing straight. If the weight swings away from the logs, your wall is leaning. You check every corner, squinting your eyes in the pale light. Everything looks good. The walls are rising true and strong. You stop for a moment to rest. You lean your back against the logs you just stacked. The wood is cold, but it feels like a shield. You look out through the space where your door will be. The forest looks different from inside the cabin. It looks like a picture in a frame. You feel a sense of safety that you did not have when you were sleeping on the open ground. Even though there is no roof yet, the walls are already starting to keep the biting wind away. There is a deep silence in the clearing today. The sky is a heavy, flat grey, and it looks like more snow might be coming. You watch a single dry leaf blow across the clearing, It dances over the white powder before getting stuck against a log. You feel a moment of reflection. You think about how much work has gone into these few feet of wall. Every log represents a tree you felled, a trunk you peeled, and a weight you dragged through the snow. You are the watchman of this progress. You are the one who turned the wild woods into a room. You look at your mackinaw coat. It is covered in wood dust and tiny bits of moss. Your mittens are starting to show some wear. The moose hide is getting smooth in the palms from gripping the rope and the axe. You take a moment to tighten a loose thread on your sleeve. Out here, you have to take care of your clothes just as much as your tools. If your coat falls apart, you will freeze. You are your own tailor, just as you are your own carpenter. You move to the next log. You have to keep going while the light lasts. The days are getting even shorter now. The sun only stays up for a few hours. Like a candle that is almost burnt out, you work with a steady rhythm. Lift, slide, notch, set. Your body knows what to do now. Your muscles are tired, but they are also getting stronger. You feel the power in your legs as you pull the rope. You feel the precision in your hands as you guide the wood into the saddle notches. As the walls get higher, the cabin starts to feel like a real house. You can imagine the smell of the fire and the sound of the wind howling outside while you stay warm inside. You're building a barrier against the white death. You are making a place where the cold cannot reach you. Every log you add is another layer of life. You feel a deep pride in the work. It is simple, honest, and necessary. The light is starting to fade into a dusty blue. You decide to add one more log before you stop for the night. This log will bring the wall up to your chin. You set up your ramp poles and loop the rope. You pull with everything you have. You can hear your own heart beating fast in your ears. Thump, thump, thump. You give one final heave, and the log rolls into place. You stand there for a minute, catching your breath, looking at the tall wooden walls you have made. The forest is turning dark, and the first stars are peeking through the grey clouds. You pick up your tools and prepare to leave the clearing for your small camp. You look back at the cabin. In the dim light, it looks like a dark crown sitting on the snow. It is growing higher every day. Tomorrow, you will reach the height of the door. Tomorrow, you will be one step closer to being finished. You walk away through the deep snow, the watchman of a house that is slowly coming to life. You sit down on a low log, leaning your back against the solid wall you have built. Your body is heavy with a deep, honest tiredness. The sun has dipped far below the horizon now, leaving the world in a wash of dark, cold blue. The logs behind you feel like a great shield, protecting you from the wind that has started to moan through the tops of the spruce trees. You reach into your pack and pull out your small cooking kit. It is time for your evening meal. Out here, food is not just about being full. It is about fuel. It is the wood you put in your own engine to keep your heart beating through the freezing night. In the history of the Yukon, the most common food for a man alone was something called hardtack. This is a simple fact of the gold rush. You needed foods that would not rot and would not break. Hardtack is a very simple biscuit made of nothing but flour, water, and sometimes a bit of salt. It is baked until it is as hard as a brick. It can last for years without going bad. Sailors took it on ships, and miners took it into the mountains. It is a hard, grey-white square that feels like a stone in your hand. If you tried to bite it as it is, you might break a tooth. You pull a piece of hardtack from a small cloth bag. You also find a piece of salt pork. This is a microhistory detail of a miner's diet. Salt pork is fatty meat that has been packed in salt to keep it from spoiling. It is very salty and very tough, but the fat gives you the energy you need to lift those heavy logs tomorrow. You use your pocket knife to slice a thin piece of the pork. The blade is cold, and the meat is frozen, so you have to push hard. You set the meat and the hardtack on your tin plate. The plate is scratched and dull, but it is one of your few treasures. You start a small fire between two flat stones. You use a few dry spruce twigs and a bit of birch bark. The bark curls up and catches fire instantly, making a bright, cheerful pop. You set your tin cup on the edge of the flames. It is a simple cup with a wire handle that gets very hot, so you have to use the edge of your mitten to pick it up. You fill the cup with snow and watch it melt into clear cold water. Once it starts to boil, you drop in a few pinches of black tea leaves. The smell of the tea is wonderful. It is a sharp, clean scent that cuts through the smell of the cold and the wet wool of your coat. You drop the hardtack into the hot tea. This is the only way to eat it. You have to let it soak until the dry, hard flour turns soft and mushy. You sit there, watching the tea turn a deep dark brown. You feel a sense of calm. You are not thinking about gold or money. You are only thinking about the warmth of the cup in your hands and the food waiting for you. There is a moment of deep silence as you wait for your meal. A light snow has started to fall. The flakes are big and soft, drifting down like feathers from the sky. They land on your sleeves and your knees, but they do not melt. It is so cold that the snow stays dry. You look at your cabin walls. In the dim light of the fire, the notches you carved today look deep and dark. You feel a sense of reflection. You are just one man in a giant frozen wilderness, yet you have built something. You have a place. You are not just a wanderer anymore. You take the hardtack out of the tea with your knife. It is now soft enough to eat. It doesn't have much of a taste, it just tastes like warm, wet bread, but it feels good in your stomach. You follow it with the slice of salt pork. The salt makes your mouth tingle, and the fat is rich and heavy. You take a long sip of the hot tea. It is very bitter because you have no sugar, but it sends a wave of heat all the way down to your toes. You can feel your strength slowly coming back to you. You look at your hands. The skin is red and rough from the wind and the wood. You hold them near the small flames, feeling the tingle as the heat returns. You think about the night shift again. In the towns along the river, there might be men sitting in warm saloons, playing cards and laughing. But here, there is only the sound of the fire and the soft hiss of the snow hitting the hot coals. You prefer it this way. There is no one to argue with, no one to worry about. You are the watchman of your own peace. You finish your tea, scraping the last of the tea leaves from the bottom of the tin cup. You wipe your plate clean with a bit of snow and put your kit back into your pack. You feel warm and full, even if the meal was simple. You stand up and stretch, feeling the pull of your muscles. You look one last time at the clearing. The falling snow is starting to hide your footprints. It is like the woods are trying to wipe away the marks of your work, but your cabin still stands there, tall and dark. Tomorrow, you will go back to the forest. You will need more than just logs to stay warm. You will need to find the moss that grows under the snow. You will need to find the gaps between the wood. Before tonight, the work is done. You crawl into your blankets, tucking the wool tight around your neck. The cold is all around you, but the tea and the hardtack have given you a little fire inside. You close your eyes and listen to the wind, the watchman of the Yukon night, ready for the sleep you have earned. The sun is a ghost today, hidden behind thick, heavy clouds that look like dirty wool. You stand outside your half-built walls and look at the spaces between the logs. No matter how well you notch the corners, there is still small gaps between the long trunks. These gaps are where the wind lives. If you do not close them, the cold will whistle through your house like it is made of paper. You need to find a way to seal the walls. In the world of the Yukon, this is called chinking. It is a simple fact of history that moss was the most important thing for a builder, even more than the wood itself. Without moss to stop the drafts, a cabin is just a wooden cage. You pick up your moss bud. This is a microhistory detail of a miner's gear. It is a simple tool, often just a long piece of wood with a flat, sharp end, like a wide chisel. You could use a metal shovel, but a wooden spud is lighter and does not get as cold in your hands. You also take a large burlap sack, the kind that once held 50 pounds of flour. You sling it over your shoulder and walk away from the clearing, moving deep into the shadow of the spruce trees, where the ground is low and damp. The snow is very deep here. You have to use your boots to clear a wide space, kicking the white powder away until you reach the floor of the forest. Underneath the snow, the ground is not just dirt. It is covered in a thick, frozen carpet of green. This is sphagnum moss. It is a special kind of plant that grows in wet places. In the summer, it is soft and bouncy like a sponge, holding onto water. In the winter, it freezes into a solid mat. It is nature's own wool. It is the best thing in the world for keeping a house warm because it is full of tiny air pockets that trap the heat. You bend down and use your moss spud to pry up a piece of the frozen green carpet. Craw, rack. The moss breaks away from the earth in big stiff chunks. You lift a piece and look at it. Even though it is frozen, it still has a deep, earthy color. It smells like damp ground and old leaves. You brush the dirt and ice from the bottom of the moss and drop it into your sack. You move to the next spot and repeat the work. Scrape, pry, lift. Scrape, pry, lift. Scrape, pry, lift. The work is quiet and steady. You're close to the ground, so you can see things you usually miss. You see the tiny tracks of a field mouse that ran across the moss before the snow fell. You see the brown needles of the spruce trees tucked into the green folds of the plant. It feels like you are uncovering a secret world that has been sleeping under the white blanket of winter. You feel a deep connection to the earth. You are not just taking wood from the trees anymore. You are taking the very skin of the forest floor to protect yourself. You stop for a moment and sit back on your heels. You let your hands rest on your knees. The silence here is different from the silence in the clearing. Here, under the thick branches, the air is even stiller. You look at the giant trees around you. They have stood here for 100 years, protected by this same moss at their roots. Now, that moss will protect you. You feel a moment of deep reflection. You think about how everything you need to survive is right here, hidden under the snow. You just have to be patient enough to find it and strong enough to carry it. The Yukon is a harsh place, but it is also a place that provides for those who watch and learn. Your sack is getting heavy now. The frozen moss is dense and weighs a lot. You stand up, feeling the pull in your lower back. You heave the sack onto your shoulder. The burlap is rough and cold against your neck, but the weight feels good. It feels like security. You walk back toward your cabin, your boots sinking deep into the trail you made earlier. The sack bumps against your hip with every step. When you get back to the clearing, you dump the moss out onto a flat area near your door. It makes a dull thud as it hits the ground. The pile looks like a heap of green stones. It is too hard to use right now. If you tried to push it into the cracks between the logs, it would just break into tiny pieces. You need to find a way to make it soft and flexible again. You look at your small fire pit. You will have to use heat to bring the moss back to life. You think about the night shift again. You are like a gatherer from the old times, bringing in the harvest before the big storms arrive. The moss is your harvest. It is not gold, but in a Yukon winter, a warm wall is worth more than a bag of yellow dust. You look at your cabin walls, standing tall and dark against the grey sky. Soon, those gaps will be filled with green. Soon the wind will have no way to get inside. You feel a sense of satisfaction as you look at the pile of moss. You have done the hard part of finding it and digging it out of the frozen earth. Your hands are a bit cold and your breath is still coming in white clouds, but you feel a warm glow of pride in your chest. You are the watchman of your own comfort. You are making sure that when the 50-degree temperatures arrive, you will be ready. The afternoon light is starting to fail. The grey clouds are turning a dark, heavy purple. You decide to gather one more sack of moss before the day is done. You know you will need a lot of it. You will need to pack it tight into every tiny hole and every long seam. You pick up your burlap bag and head back into the trees. The forest is waiting, silent and deep, holding the secrets of your survival under its white coat. You walk slowly, the watchman of the night, searching for the green life that will keep the white death away. The pile of frozen moss sits by your cabin like a heap of cold green stones. To use it, you must bring it back to life. You cannot jam frozen plants into the cracks of your walls. They would just snap and leave gaps for the wind. You need the moss to be soft, damp, and springy. You walk over to your small fire pit and begin to build a bigger flame. You find some thick pieces of dry spruce and lay them across the hot coals. Soon the orange light is dancing, and you can feel a circle of warmth pushing back the Yukon chill. You find a flat piece of sheet metal that you brought with you in your pack. This is a micro-history detail of a miner's gear. Many men carried a scrap of light metal to use as a frying pan, a shovel, or, in this case, a warming tray. You set the metal over 2 large stones at the edge of the fire. You pick up a handful of the frozen moss and spread it out on the metal tray. A simple fact of building with moss is that heat changes everything. As the metal gets warm, the ice inside the moss begins to melt. You see little puffs of white steam rising into the cold air. The moss turns from a dull brownish green to a bright, deep emerald. The smell is wonderful. It is the smell of a summer forest damp earth, sweet rain, and growing things. It is a strange thing to smell summer in the middle of a frozen wasteland. It makes you feel a little bit of a pang in your heart, remembering warmer places, but it also gives you hope. You reach out and touch the moss with your bare hand for just a second. It is warm and soft. It feels like a thick piece of wool cloth. You pick up a clump and squeeze it. A few drops of dark water trickle through your fingers. This is perfect. When the moss is soft like this, you can pack it so tight that it becomes as solid as the wood itself. You take the warm moss and walk over to the base of your cabin wall. You look at the first long gap between the sill log and the log above it. Even though you notched the corners well, the trunks of the trees are not perfectly straight. There are long, thin openings where you can see the white snow on the other side. You take a clump of the warm moss and push it into the crack with your fingers. Then, you pick up your chinking iron. This is just a flat, blunt piece of wood you carve to look like a thick knife. You use the end of the stick to hammer the moss deep into the gap. Thump, thump, thump. The moss disappears into the crack. You add more, and then more. You keep packing it in until the gap is completely full. You rub your hand along the seam. It feels smooth and firm. You have made a seal. This is the night shift of the building process. The quiet, repetitive work that nobody sees but everyone feels. You are the watchman of the drafts. You are hunting down every tiny hole where the cold might try to hide. You go back to the fire to get more warm moss. You have to work in small batches so the moss doesn't freeze again before you can use it. You spend the next few hours moving back and forth. Fire to wall. Wall to fire. Your back is starting to feel the strain of bending over, but you find a rhythm. You listen to the sound of the spruce logs as they settle. Sometimes, as the wood warms up from your proximity, it makes a loud pop or a crack. It sounds like the house is talking to you, thanking you for its new green coat. There is a moment of deep silence as the sun reaches its highest point. The light is still very dim, but it turns the forest into a world of silver and grey. You stop and look at your work. The bottom 3 rows of your cabin now have dark green lines running between the pale logs. It looks beautiful. It looks like the cabin is growing out of the earth itself. You feel a sense of reflection. You think about how many thousands of tiny moss plants you were using to keep yourself safe. You are part of the forest now, and the forest is part of your home. You look at your mittens. They are damp from the moss and stained with green juice. You hold them near the fire to dry them out, watching the steam rise from the leather. You feel a deep sense of peace. You are solving a problem using only what you found under the snow. You don't need fancy machines or expensive tools. You just need fire, wood, and the green life of the Yukon floor. The wind picks up a little, whistling through the tops of the trees. It hits the side of your cabin, but it doesn't come through. You stand on the inside of the walls and put your face near the chink seams. You feel nothing. No cold air. No moving wind. Just the solid, quiet wall. You have won the first battle against the drafts. You have turned a pile of frozen stones into a warm, soft shield. You pick up your moss sack to go and gather more. You know you have many more rows of logs to seal. You have the corners to do, and eventually the roof. It is a long job, but you are the watchman of this house, and you will not stop until every crack is closed. You walk back toward the deep trees, your boots crunching in the snow, feeling the warmth of the fire still lingering on your skin. The Yukon night will be cold, but your walls are getting stronger every hour. The shadows are growing long and blue across the snow. You stand before your wall with a fresh pile of warm, damp moss. You have finished the bottom rows, but as you look up, you see many more gaps waiting for your attention. This is the heart of the night shift work. It is not exciting, like felling a giant tree or lifting a heavy log. It is quiet, slow, and very repetitive. But in the Yukon, this is the work that decides if you live or die when the great cold arrives. You are the watchman of the seams, and you must be perfect. You pick up a handful of the emerald green moss. It feels heavy and wet in your hand. You have spent the last hour warming it by the fire, and it still holds a little bit of that heat. You take your chinking iron, that flat, blunt stick you carved, and you move to the next log. You find a place where the wood is slightly curved, leaving a hole big enough to fit your thumb through. If you left that hole open, the freezing wind would pour inside like water from a pipe. You push the moss into the hole. You don't just tuck it in, you drive it home. Thump, thump, thump. You use the weight of your body to push the chinking iron against the moss. You want to pack it so tight that it feels as hard as the wood itself. A simple fact of building here is that moss shrinks as it dries. If you do not pack it tightly now, it will pull away from the wood later, and the gaps will return. You are building for the future. You are building for the nights when the thermometer drops so low that the air itself seems to freeze. As you work your way along the seam, your mind begins to wander. This is the peaceful part of the job. Your hands know what to do. You move from left to right, stuffing the green life into the pale wood. You look at the texture of the logs. Each one is different. Some have tiny cracks in the wood called checks. These happen as the wood dries out. You take small bits of moss and fill those too. You are like a doctor healing the wounds of the trees. You want the whole wall to be one solid, unbroken shield. The air is very crisp now. You can feel the moisture from the moss starting to turn to frost on the outside of your mittens. Your fingers are getting a bit stiff, but the movement of the work keeps your blood flowing. You look at your tools. Beside you is a small bucket of mud you mixed earlier. You took some of the fine silt from the riverbank and mixed it with a little bit of water over the fire. This is a microhistory detail of a cabin builder's life. While the moss does the main job of stopping the wind, a thin layer of mud, rubbed over the top, acts like a glue. It keeps the birds from stealing your moss to build their own nests, and it helps seal out the tiniest breaths of air. You dip 2 fingers into the cool grey mud and smear it over the packed moss. It feels smooth and slick. You rub it back and forth until the green moss is hidden behind a neat grey line. It looks very tidy. You take a step back and look at the wall. The logs are no longer just a pile of wood. They look like a finished thing. The grey lines of mud and the dark green of the moss make a pattern that is very pleasing to the eye. You feel a sense of deep pride. You are not a professional builder, but you are doing honest work. The forest is so quiet that you can hear the sound of a single spruce needle falling and hitting the snow. Tick. It is a tiny sound, but it reminds you of how big the silence is here. You stop and look at the trees. They are standing perfectly still, like they are watching you. You feel a moment of reflection. You think about how strange it is to be so busy in a world that is so still. Everything else is sleeping or hiding, but you are here, hammering and smearing and building. You are the only thing changing the landscape. You are the only person for miles, and yet you are making a place that feels like it has always belonged here. You move to the corner of the cabin. This is the hardest part to seal. The saddle notches you carved are strong, but the wood is thin at the edges. You have to be very gentle as you pack the moss into the corners. If you hit it too hard, you might chip the wood. Use a smaller, thinner stick to poke the moss into the very heart of the joint. You spend a long time on one corner, making sure it is airtight. You imagine the wind trying to get in. You imagine it searching for a way through the wood, only to be stopped by your hard-packed moss. You feel like a soldier guarding a gate. As the light turns to a deep dark purple, you finish the last seam on the north wall. This is the side where the coldest winds come from. You have given it your best work. You rub your aching shoulders and stretch your arms high above your head. Your mackinaw coat is heavy with the dampness of the moss and the dust of the logs, but you don't mind. You feel strong. You feel like you are winning. You look at your pile of moss. It is almost gone. You will have to go back into the deep woods tomorrow to gather more. But for today, you have done enough. You have turned a drafty cage into a solid room. You walk inside the 4 walls and stand in the middle of the dark dirt floor. Even though there is no roof, it already feels warmer. The walls have stopped the movement of the air. You look up at the sky, which is now full of bright, cold stars. You feel safe. You pick up your chinking iron and your mud bucket. You walk back toward your small camp, your boots making a heavy, tired sound in the snow. Crunch, crunch. You think about the fire you will build and the warm tea you will drink. You think about the sleep that is coming. You have worked hard on the night shift, and you have done your duty. You are the watchman of the Yukon, and your walls are sealed tight. The White Death can blow as hard as it wants, but it will not find a way into your home tonight. The sun has disappeared completely, leaving a thin line of bruised orange along the western peaks. The world is falling into the deep blue of a Yukon evening. You stand back and look at your walls. They are now solid. From the ground up to your shoulders, the gaps are gone. The green moss and the grey mud have turned the logs into a single unbroken shield. This is a moment of deep satisfaction. You have completed the chinking of the lower walls. Now the wind can no longer find a path to your skin. A simple fact of life in the north is that the wind is a thief. It tries to steal the heat from your body and the warmth from your fire. By sealing the walls, you have locked the door on that thief. You walk around the perimeter of your cabin, running your gloved hand along the seams. The mud has started to freeze, turning the soft silt into something as hard as stone. This is good. It means the seal is permanent. It means the White Death will have to stay outside where it belongs. As you stand there, you notice something you hadn't seen before. A small, thin trail of white frost is forming on the outside of one of the logs. This is a microhistory detail of a cabin's breath. It shows you exactly where your own body heat is trying to escape through a tiny invisible hole. You take a small bit of leftover moss from your pocket and jam it into the spot. You are the watchman of the tiny details. You know that in this land, a small mistake can lead to a big problem. You do not leave anything to chance. The air is becoming very heavy and still. You look at your thermometer, a small blast tube mounted on a piece of wood that you keep tucked in your pack. The red liquid inside has dropped far below the 0 mark. It is getting very cold, very fast. You can feel the hair inside your nose starting to freeze with every breath you take. It is a strange, tickling feeling. You know it is time to stop the heavy work and focus on making yourself safe for the night. You step inside the square of your cabin walls. Even though there is no roof yet, the air inside feels different. It is quieter. The walls break the force of the breeze, creating a small pocket of calm. You look at the dark dirt floor. You've cleared it well, but it is still just frozen earth. You think about the spruce boughs you saved from the trees you cut down. These spruce feathers will be your floor for now. You go to the pile and begin to carry armloads of the green branches into the cabin. You lay them down in a thick layer, starting from the back corner. You overlap them like the shingles on a roof. The needles are soft and springy. As you walk on them, they give off a sharp, clean smell that fills the small space. It smells like life. This green floor will keep your blankets off the frozen ground and provide a little bit of insulation. You are using every part of the forest to build your sanctuary. There is a moment of deep reflection as you stand in the center of your new room. You are surrounded by the wood you cut, the moss you gathered, and the branches you laid. You have built this with nothing but your own 2 hands and a few simple tools. You feel a sense of belonging that no city house could ever give you. You are not just a visitor in the Yukon, you are a part of it. The forest provided the materials, and you provided the will. Together, you have made a home. You look at your hands. The moose hide of your mittens is stained and worn, but your fingers are still warm. You feel a deep tiredness in your bones, but it is a good tiredness. It is the weight of a day well spent. You look up at the sky. The stars are coming out in thousands. They're so bright and so close that it feels like you could reach up and pluck one from the blackness. The Milky Way stretches across the sky like a river of silver dust. You stand there for a long time, just looking up, the watchman of the universe. You realize that the night shift is not just about work, it is also about witnessing the beauty of the world when everyone else is asleep. You see the way the starlight glints off the frost on the logs. You hear the way the ice on the river groans and cracks in the distance. These are things you would never know if you were tucked away in a warm bed in a crowded town. There is a magic in the cold and the dark that belongs only to you. You decide to light a small candle lantern. It is a simple tin box with a piece of glass and a small wax candle inside. As the flame catches, the interior of your cabin lights up. The orange glow dances on the pale logs and the green spruce floor. The shadows move softly against the walls. For the first time, it doesn't feel like a construction site. It feels like a room. It feels like a place where a man can sit and think and be at peace. You sit down on your bed of branches. The needles crunch softly beneath you. You pull your blankets around your shoulders and watch the small flame of the candle. The wind is beginning to pick up again, whistling through the tops of the tall trees outside, but inside your walls, the air is still. You have built a fortress. You have made a stand against the winter. As you prepare to blow out the light and drift into sleep, you feel a deep sense of security. You are the watchman of the Yukon night, and your watch is going well. The walls are high, the seams are tight, and the floor is soft. Tomorrow you will begin the work of the roof, but tonight you have a home. You close your eyes and let the silence of the forest wrap around you like a heavy, warm blanket. The night is deep now, and the world has turned into a place of shadows and silver starlight. You reach into your pack and pull out a small, heavy object wrapped in a piece of soft cloth. This is your candle lantern. In the history of the Yukon, a good light was as precious as a sharp axe. This is a simple fact of the North. The winter days are so short that you spend most of your life in the dark. Without a light, you are blind and helpless. This lantern is a folding type, made of thin tin and small panes of mica. Mica is a natural mineral that looks like clear plastic, but will not melt in the heat of a flame. You unfold the tin sides and click the top into place. It makes a small metallic clink that sounds very loud in the still air. You pull a match from your waterproof tin. You strike it against a dry stone, and the sudden flare of yellow light makes you squint. You touch the flame to the wick of a short, thick candle. The wax begins to melt, and a steady, warm glow fills the small lantern. You hang the wire handle on a small branch stub sticking out from your cabin wall. The effect is magical. The orange light splashes against the pale, peeled logs. It catches the edges of the green moss you packed so carefully into the cracks. The shadows of the logs look like dark stripes on the walls. For the first time, your cabin does not look like a pile of wood in the snow. It looks like a room. It looks like a place where a person belongs. This light is your golden torch. It is the heart of your home, beating in the middle of a vast, frozen wilderness. You sit down on your bed of spruce boughs and just watch the flame. This is a moment of atmospheric reflection. The world outside the walls is giant and cold. It is full of mountains that do not care about you and a wind that wants to freeze your blood. But inside this small square of wood, the world is small and warm. You'll have created a tiny island of safety. The candle flame is steady because there is no wind to blow it out. You have won. You have made a space where the rules of the Yukon do not apply. You look at the mica windows of the lantern. They are a bit smoky from use, but they soften the light, making the cabin feel cozy. This is a micro-history detail of a miner's evening. You take this time to do the small jobs that keep you going. You pull a needle and a length of heavy thread from your kit. Your mackinaw coat has a small tear near the pocket where a branch caught it today. You work slowly, pushing the needle through the thick wool. The light from the lantern is just bright enough to see your stitches. The smell of the cabin is changing. The heat from the candle and the warmth of your own body are starting to draw the scent out of the wood. It smells like fresh resin, damp moss, and the sharp, clean perfume of the spruce needles on the floor. It is a wonderful smell. It is the smell of survival. You feel a deep peace. There is no one to talk to, no news of the world, and no worries about tomorrow. There is only the needle, the thread, and the steady orange glow. You think about the night shift again. You are the watchman of this flame. As long as it burns, the darkness stays outside. You realize that humans have been doing this for thousands of years, sitting around a small light, hidden away from the wild night. It is a very old feeling. It makes you feel strong and connected to everyone who has ever built a fire in the dark. You finish your sewing and bite the thread off with your teeth. You put the needle away carefully. You cannot afford to lose it. You look around your room. Tomorrow you will build the door. You will make a way to close this space off completely. But tonight the open doorway lets you see the stars. They look like diamonds scattered on black velvet. They are so bright that they almost seem to hum. The cold is still there just beyond the walls. You can see your breath in the lantern light, a soft white mist that rises and disappears. But you are not shivering. Your wall clothes and your logs are doing their job. You reach out and touch the wall. The wood is cold, but the moss feels soft. You feel a sense of pride. This is your work. This is your life. You decide it is time to rest. You blow out the candle, and the darkness rushes back in. But it is not a scary darkness. It is a soft, quiet dark that feels like a blanket. The smell of the extinguished candle, the scent of burnt wick and warm wax lingers in the air for a moment. You lie back on the springy branches and pull your heavy blankets up to your chin. The white death is prowling outside, but you are tucked away in your wooden nest, guarded by the walls you built with your own hands. You are the watchman of the night, and your home is ready for the stars. The morning air is a sharp blue, and the frost on the trees looks like a coating of sugar. You stand in the gap of your front wall. This is the space you left for your door. Up until now, it has just been an open hole, letting in the cold and the view of the forest. But today you will build a way to close the world out. A door is more than just a piece of wood. It is the final bit of safety. It is the difference between camping in a shell and living in a house. In the history of the Yukon, building a door was a test of a man's cleverness. You did not have a shop to buy a door from. You could not just go and get metal hinges and a shiny handle. You had to make everything from the trees around you. A simple fact of building here is that while the walls are made of soft spruce, the door parts are often made of birch or willow. These are harder woods that can stand up to being moved and rubbed every day. You have to find a tree that is strong but will not snap in the deep frost. You begin by finding 3 straight logs. You have already peeled these and let them sit by the fire to dry out. You lay them side by side on the floor of your cabin. You need to join them together to make a flat surface. Since you have no nails, you use a method called battening. You take 2 shorter pieces of wood and lay them across the 3 logs. You will use wooden pegs to hold them in place. This is a micro-history detail of a miner's life, the tree nail. A tree nail is just a pin made of hard wood. You drill a hole through the crosspiece and into the door logs with your hand auger. An auger is a long metal tool with a T-shaped handle that you twist to bite into the wood. Squeak, scrape, squeak. You can feel the wood resisting the metal, but slowly, the hole grows deeper. Once the holes are ready, you carve your wooden pins. You make them just a tiny bit bigger than the holes. You pick up your heavy wooden mallet and strike the pin. Thump, thud. The pin flies into the hole, locking the boards together so tightly they will never come apart. You do this at the top and the bottom. Now, you have a heavy, solid slab of wood. It is heavy and it smells like fresh birch and spruce. You lift it up, feeling the weight in your arms. It feels like a shield. Now you must think about how the door will move. You have no metal hinges, so you must use the pin and hole style. This is a very old way of making a door. You carve a long, round post on one side of the door. This post will fit into a hole in the log above the door and a hole in the log below. It is a simple machine that has worked for thousands of years. You spend hours with your small axe and your knife, shaving the wood until it is perfectly round and smooth. You want the door to swing easily, without a loud groan that would wake you up in the middle of the night. You stop for a moment and sit in the open doorway. This is a moment of deep reflection. You look out at the snow. From here, you can see the path you made to the river and the tall trees that gave you their wood. You think about how strange it is to be building a barrier between yourself and the nature you love. You need the forest to survive, but you also need to be away from its cold breath. You feel like the watchman of a border. On one side is the wild, and on the other side is the home. Soon, you will be able to choose when to let the wild in. The silence of the afternoon is broken only by the sound of your own knife scraping the wood. Shh, 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 shh. You are making the latch now. This is another clever bit of work. You carve a wooden bar that slides into a notch on the door frame. But how do you open it from the outside? You use a latch string. This is a piece of leather or strong hemp rope tied to the bar. You poke a tiny hole through the door and let the string hang out on the outside. If you want someone to come in, you leave the string out. If you want to be left alone, you pull the string inside. It is a simple way to say welcome or go away. You are careful with the latch string. You rub a little bit of animal fat onto the leather so it stays soft and does not freeze to the wood. You want to be sure that even if the door is covered in frost, you can still get inside. You think about the night shift again. When the sun goes down and the wolves start to howl far away on the ridges, you will pull that string inside. You will be the watchman of your own safety. The heavy birch door will be between you and the dark, and you will be at peace. You spend the rest of the light fitting the door into the frame. This is the hardest part. You have to lift the heavy slab and guide the wooden pins into the holes you carved in the wall logs. It takes a lot of pushing and grunting. You use your shoulder to shove the wood into place. Creak, snap. The door drops into its sockets. You hold your breath and give it a gentle push. The door swings open. It makes a soft, low sound, like a contented sigh. You pull it shut, and the wooden latch drops into place with a solid clack. It fits perfectly. You stand inside the dark cabin and look at the door. There is no light coming through the edges. You have done a good job. You have sealed the entrance. You walk to the door and pull the latch string inside. You feel a surge of joy. You are finally, truly in your own house. The forest is turning a dusty purple now, and the first stars are showing. You step outside one last time to gather some wood for your evening fire. You look back at your cabin. With the door shut, it looks like a solid block of wood. It looks like it belongs in the Yukon. It looks like it could stand up to any storm. You feel a deep sense of pride. You have built the walls, you have chinked the gaps, and now you have hung the door. You go back inside and shut the door behind you. The sound of the wind immediately drops away. It is so quiet that you can hear the ticking of your own watch in your pocket. You light your small candle lantern and hang it up. The light glows against the new birch wood of the door. You sit on your bed of spruce branches and feel the warmth of your own breath staying in the room. You are the watchman of the night, and your gate is closed. You are safe. You are home. The walls of your cabin are now high enough that you can no longer see over the top. You stand inside the small square of your home, looking up at the open sky. The stars last night were beautiful, but you know that an open top is an invitation for the snow to bury you alive. Today, you must start the most dangerous and difficult part of the build, the roof. You are going to build a purlin roof. A simple fact of history in the Yukon is that most miners used this style because it could hold the massive weight of the winter snow without snapping. The purlin is just a long, straight pole that runs the length of the cabin, resting on the triangle-shaped ends of your walls. To start, you must build the gables. These are the two walls at the front and back that keep growing upward into a point while the side walls stay flat. You pick up your axe and look at the logs you have left. These need to be lighter and thinner than the ones at the base. You lift a log and set it on the front wall. You notch it, but this time you make it shorter than the one below it. Each log you add is shorter than the last, creating a set of wooden stairs that climb toward the sky. Raising these logs is exhausting work. You are standing on a narrow ledge of wood, 5 or 6 feet off the ground. Your boots are heavy and the logs are slippery with a thin coat of frost. You have to be the watchman of your own balance. If you fall out here, there is no one to hear you call. You move slowly, placing each foot with care. You use your hemp rope to pull the wood up, hand over hand. Your muscles in your forearms feel like they are on fire, and your breath comes in short, ragged gasps of white steam. Once the gable ends are high enough, it is time for the ridgepole. This is the king of the roof. It is the longest, straightest tree you have, and it will sit at the very highest point of the cabin. It connects the front peak to the back peak. Finding a tree straight enough for this was a challenge. You go to where it lies in the snow and prepare your rope. This is the long lift. You have to pull this heavy trunk all the way to the top. You set up your ram poles again, leaning them against the peak of the gable. You loop the rope over the top and begin to pull. You plant your feet against the bottom log and lean back, using your whole body weight. Yun. The log moves an inch. You pull again. Creak. The wood groans as it slides up the ramp. You are sweating now, despite the cold. You can feel the dampness under your mackinaw coat. You know it is dangerous, but you cannot stop now. The log is halfway up, and if you let go, it will crash down and break your door. With one final massive heave, the ridgepole reaches the notch at the top of the gable. It drops into place with a sound like a hammer hitting an anvil. Wad. The whole cabin seems to settle under the weight. You climb up the corner of the walls and sit on the very top, straddling the ridgepole like a horse. From up here, the world looks different. You can see over the tops of the smaller bushes and out across the frozen river. The valley is a sea of white and dark green. This is a moment of deep silence and reflection. You are sitting on the highest point of the home you built. You feel like a king on a wooden throne. The air up here feels even colder, sharper, and cleaner. You look down into the dark interior of your cabin. It looks small, but it looks safe. You think about the journey that brought you here, the miles of walking, the heavy packs, the frozen toes. It was all for this one room, this one roof. You don't stay up there long. The wind is stronger at this height, and it starts to tug at your wall cap. You have to add the other purlins. These are the poles that sit halfway between the ridgepole and the sidewalls. They give the roof its strength. You repeat the lifting process 4 more times. Each pole is a struggle, but you are getting better at it. You have learned how to use the rope to do the work for you. You have learned how to judge the balance of the wood. To keep these poles from sliding off the slanted gables, you use your micro-history tool, the hand auger. This is a long, T-shaped drill. You sit on the roof and twist the handle. Squeak, scrape, squeak. You drill a hole through the roof pole and deep into the gable log below it. Then you take a tree nail, that hard wooden peg you carved, and drive it home with your mallet. Whack, whack, the peg locks the roof together. Even a giant wind will not be able to lift these poles now. The roof is starting to look like a skeleton. It is a series of long, parallel lines of wood. It doesn't look like much protection yet, but the bones are strong. You walk across the poles, testing them with your weight. They do not bend. They do not creak. They are solid spruce, the best the Yukon has to offer. You feel a deep sense of relief. The heavy lifting is mostly over. You have the frame. You have the height. You have the height. Your hands are very sore today. The rough hemp rope has rubbed against the palms of your mittens, and the constant gripping of the auger has made your fingers cramp. You rub your hands together, feeling the heat of the friction. You look at the sky. The clouds are hanging low. and the air smells like more snow. You need to get the skin on this roof before the storm hits. You look at the ground. You have a pile of poles waiting. These are very thin young trees about as thick as your wrist. You will lay these side by side across the purlins to create a solid wooden ceiling. It is a repetitive job, much like the chinking was. You start at one end and begin to lay them down. Clack, clack, clack. The sound of the small poles hitting the big ones is light and musical. As you work, the light begins to turn that dusty winter purple. The forest is settling in for the night. You see a snowshoe hare hop across the clearing, its white fur making it look like a ghost against the snow. It stops for a second, looks at you with one dark eye, and then disappears into the brush. You are the watchman of this forest, and even the animals are starting to accept you as part of the landscape. By the time the stars start to peek through the clouds, you have covered half of the roof with the smaller poles. You can now stand inside and see a ceiling over your head. It feels much smaller inside now, and much warmer. The heat from your body is trapped by the wood instead of floating away into space. You climb down the wall and stand by your door. You look up at your work and feel a tired, quiet joy. You have raised the roof. You have built the bones of your shelter. Tomorrow you will add the dirt and the moss to make it airtight. But tonight you will sleep under wood that you cut and lifted yourself. You go inside, close the door, and light your small candle. The light reflects off the new ceiling, making the room feel golden. You are the watchman of the Yukon, and your roof is holding steady. The morning is silent, but the air feels heavy. You look up at the skeleton of your roof. You have laid the small poles side by side, creating a wooden ceiling, but this is not enough to stop the cold. In the Yukon, a roof needs more than just wood. It needs weight and insulation. To survive the White Death, you must use the earth itself. Today, you are going to add the sod. This is a simple fact of history. A dirt roof was the warmest thing a miner could have. The earth acts like a thick blanket, trapping the heat of your fire and keeping the freezing wind from soaking through the wood. You go to a spot where the ground is a bit higher, away from the river. You clear the snow with your gold pan, revealing the frozen top layer of the forest floor. This layer is called sod. It is a mix of dirt, dead leaves, and the roots of small plants. Because it is full of roots, it holds together in big, flat pieces like blocks of cheese. You use your axe to cut the frozen earth into squares. Thump. Crack. The blade bites into the icy ground. You pry the squares up, and they come away in heavy, dark slabs. Lifting these slabs onto the roof is the most tiring work you have done yet. Each piece of sod is wet and frozen, making it as heavy as a stone. You have to carry them one by one to the side of the cabin and lift them up over your head. You feel the grit of the dirt falling into your hair and down the neck of your mackinaw coat. Your shoulders ache, and your breath comes in big, ragged clouds. You are the watchman of the load, and you must not let your strength fail now. Once you have a pile of sod on the roof, you begin to lay the blocks. You start at the bottom edge, near the walls, and work your way up toward the ridge pole. You place the blocks with the grass side down. This is a microhistory detail of a builder's trick. By putting the roots and grass against the wood, you create a soft layer that stops the dry dirt from falling through the cracks between the poles. You overlap the blocks like scales on a fish. This way, when the snow melts in the spring, the water will run off the roof instead of soaking into your bed. There is a moment of deep reflection as you stand on your roof, covered in dark earth. You are literally covering your home with the land. You look at your hands, which are stained nearly black with the damp soil. You feel a deep connection to the Yukon. You are not just building on top of the ground. You are making the ground part of your life. The forest gave you the wood, and now the earth is giving you its warmth. You feel safe, like a small animal burrowing into a nest for the winter. The silence of the afternoon is very deep. You stop for a moment to catch your breath. From this height, you can see a thin line of smoke from a distant fire miles away down the valley. It is another miner, another watchman, doing the same thing as you. It makes you feel less alone to know that others are fighting the same battle against the cold. You take a deep breath of the air, which smells of damp earth and cold spruce. It is a good, honest smell. You realize that the night shift is coming soon. The sun is already low, casting long and orange shadows across the white landscape. You work faster, laying the final blocks along the ridgepole. You fill the small gaps between the sod blocks with loose dirt and handfuls of dry moss. You want the whole roof to be one solid, thick layer of insulation. When you're finished, the roof is nearly 6 inches thick. It is a massive weight, but you know your purlin poles are strong enough to hold it. You climb down from the roof and stand back to look at your work. Your cabin looks very different now. With the dark earth on top, it looks like it grew right out of the hill. It looks solid and heavy, like a part of the mountain. You walk inside and look up. The ceiling is no longer bright with starlight. It is dark and quiet. The room feels smaller, tighter, and much warmer already. You have put a lid on your world. Your mackinaw coat is covered in mud, and your moose-hide mittens are soaked through with icy water. You hang them near where your stove will go, hoping they will dry. You feel a deep sense of accomplishment. You have built the walls, hung the door, and now you have laid the earth over your head. You are no longer living in a shell. You are living in a bunker. The white death can roar all it wants tonight, but it will never get through 6 inches of Yukon earth. You sit on your bed of spruce boughs and listen. For the first time, you cannot hear the wind at all. The silence is perfect. You are the watchman of the quiet, and you have done your job well. You close your eyes, feeling the weight of the day in your legs, and for the first time since you arrived, you feel truly, completely safe. Tomorrow you will bring in the fire, but tonight the earth is enough. The sky is a heavy, flat grey, and the air feels like it is made of iron. You stand outside your cabin, looking at the heavy object sitting on your sled. This is the heart of your home, a cast-iron potbelly stove. In the history of the Yukon, a stove was a miner's most prized possession. It was more important than a shovel or a gold pan. A simple fact of life in the north is that a small fire in a pit is fine for cooking, but to survive 50 degrees, you need a stove. This heavy iron box can hold heat for hours, slowly letting it out into the room. It is your best weapon against the white death. Moving this stove is a test of everything you have learned. It is made of solid, dark iron and weighs as much as a large man. You have it on a small wooden sled, but even on the snow, it is a struggle to move. You use your hemp rope, looping it around your shoulders and leaning forward until your face is almost in the snow. Pull. Heave. Slide. The sled makes a dry, screeching sound as the wooden runners rub against the frozen ground. You are the watchman of the load, and you must get this iron heart inside before your strength is gone. You reach the door of your cabin. Now comes the trickiest part. You have to lift the stove over the bottom log of the door frame. You cannot do this alone with just your arms. You find a long, thick branch and use it as a lever. You shove one end under the stove and push down on the other end with all your weight. The stove rises an inch, then 2. You quickly kick a small block of wood under it to hold the height. You do this again and again, walking the heavy iron box up until it is level with the floor. With one final, massive shove, the stove slides into the cabin. Clang! The sound of iron hitting the ground echoes off your new walls. It is a beautiful, solid sound. You take a moment to rest. You sit on the cold iron of the stove, your chest heaving. The inside of the cabin is dim and quiet. You look at the stove. It has a round potbelly shape and 3 small legs. There is a small door on the front with a latch and a flat top where you can set your teat in. This stove is a micro-history detail of your survival. It was probably made in a factory thousands of miles away, carried by ship, and then hauled over a mountain on a man's back. Now, it sits here in your small room, waiting to be brought to life. You move the stove to the corner furthest from your bed. You don't want it sitting directly on the spruce branches or the dirt. You find some large, flat river stones and lay them down first. This is a safety rule. You must have a hearth to catch any sparks that might jump out. You set the stove on top of the stones. It looks right. It looks like it has always been there. You reach out and touch the iron. It is freezing cold right now, but you know that soon it will be too hot to touch. There is a moment of deep reflection as you look at the empty stove. You think about the night shift that this iron box will pull. While you are sleeping, the stove will stay awake. It will hold the glowing coals and keep the frost from creeping over your blankets. It is a silent partner in your struggle. You feel a sense of relief. The heavy lifting is truly over now. You have the walls, the roof, the door, and the firebox. You have everything you need to make a stand against the winter. You look at your hands. They are covered in black soot from the iron and grey dust from the stones. Your mackinaw coat is heavy with the smell of the cold. You realize how much you have changed in just a few weeks. When you arrived, you were a stranger in a scary land. Now you are a builder. You are a man who knows how to move mountains and harness the heat of the earth. You are the watchman of your own destiny, and you have built a fortress that is almost ready. The afternoon light is fading into a deep, icy purple. You look up at the roof. You still need to cut a hole for the chimney pipe, but that is a job for when you have a bit more light. For now, you just enjoy the sight of the stove in the corner. It makes the room feel like a real house. You reach into your pocket and find a small piece of fatback. You rub it over the iron to keep it from rusting in the damp air. The iron starts to shine in the dim light. You feel a quiet joy in your heart. You are tired, but it is the best kind of tired. You have done the work of 10 men. You have carried the weight of the Yukon on your shoulders, and you have won. You are the watchman of the north, and your cabin is almost complete. Tomorrow, you will light the first fire. Tomorrow, you will finally be warm. You crawl into your blankets, looking at the dark shape of the stove in the corner, and you sleep a deep, dreamless sleep. The air inside your cabin is still and very cold this morning. You stand next to your heavy iron stove, looking up at the ceiling. You have a problem. To start a fire and stay warm, you need a way for the smoke to leave the room. If you just lit a fire now, the cabin would fill with thick grey clouds. You would not be able to breathe, and the white death would just wait for you to run outside. You need a chimney. In the world of the Yukon, this meant using a stovepipe. This is a simple fact of history. Without a pike to lead the smoke away, a cabin is just a smokehouse. You reach into your pack and pull out several sections of thin, black metal pipe. Each one is about 2 feet long. They are light but very important. These pipes are made of blued steel, which is a microhistory detail of a miner's supplies. The steel is treated so it does not rust easily in the damp Yukon air. You fit the pieces together, one by one. Clink, slide, clink. The metal makes a hollow, ringing sound as the ends lock into each other. You now have a long, straight tube that will be the throat of your house. It will breathe out the smoke, so you can breathe in the warmth. Now comes the part that makes you feel a bit nervous. You have to cut a hole in your beautiful new roof. You spent so much time laying the poles and the sod to make it airtight, and now you must break it. You climb up your small ladder, a sturdy branch with smaller sticks tied to it with rope, and look at the ceiling poles. You choose a spot directly above the stove. You use your hand auger to drill a small hole through the wood. Squeak, scrape, squeak. A shower of dry sawdust falls down, landing on your shoulders and the top of the stove. Once you have the small hole, you use your keyhole saw. This is a thin, pointed saw made for cutting curves and circles. You work slowly, moving the saw up and down. Zit, 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 zit. The sound is sharp and fast. You cut through the spruce poles until you have a round opening. Then, you have to push through the 6 inches of frozen earth and sod you laid yesterday. You use your knife to carve through the roots and dirt. It is messy work. Dark crumbs of soil fall into your eyes, and you have to stop to wipe them away with the back of your mitten. Finally, you see a tiny circle of pale blue sky. You have made a window to the world. You take the first section of the stovepipe and push it up through the hole. It fits tightly, which is good. You don't want any gaps where the heat can escape. You climb up onto the roof to finish the job from the outside. Standing on the sod, you pull the pipe up until it sticks out about 2 feet above the roof. This height is important. It ensures the wind doesn't blow the smoke back down into the cabin. You look at the place where the metal pipe meets the dirt of the roof. This is a dangerous spot. If the pipe gets too hot, it could set the wooden poles of your roof on fire. To stay safe, you use a roof jack. This is a flat piece of tin with a hole in the middle. You slide it over the pipe and nail it to the wood. Then, you pack the space around the pipe with thick, wet mud from the riverbank. You press the mud down with your mittens, smoothing it out until it looks like a small grey volcano. The mud will dry hard and act as a shield, keeping the heat of the pipe away from the wood. There is a moment of deep silence and reflection as you stand on your roof. You are finished with the outside of your house. From here you can see the whole clearing. Your footprints in the snow are starting to fill in with a light dusting of new powder. The forest is a wall of dark green and silver. You feel a strange sense of peace. You have changed this little piece of the world. You have built a machine for living. You look at the black pipe sticking out of the earth. It looks like a finger pointing at the sky, waiting for the first puff of smoke. You climb back down and stand inside your cabin. The room feels different now. The light from the hole in the roof makes a bright circle on the floor. You connect the bottom of the pipe to the collar on the back of the stove. Snap! It fits perfectly. You reach out and shake the pipe gently. It is solid. It is ready. You look at your hands, which are covered in black soot and grey mud. You don't mind the dirt. This is the dirt of a job well done. You think about the night shift again. In the big cities, there are men who spend their whole lives building giant chimneys for factories. Their work is huge and loud. Your chimney is small and quiet, but it is just as important. It is the difference between a cold night and a cozy one. You are the watchman of the hearth, and you have built the path for the fire. You feel a surge of excitement. The cabin is almost ready to be born. The afternoon light is turning to a soft, dusty orange. You look around your room. The walls are sealed, the door is hung, the roof is on, and the stove is connected. You have one last job to do before you can light the match. You need the right kind of wood, not just any wood, but the slow-burning wood that will keep the white death at bay while you sleep. You pick up your axe and walk toward the door. You look back at your stove one more time, the iron heart waiting for its first beat. You step outside and pull the door shut. The latch makes a solid clack. You feel strong and ready. You are the watchman of the Yukon, and you are about to bring the warmth of the sun into your wooden fortress. You walk into the trees, your boots crunching in the deep snow, searching for the green wood that will keep you safe through the long, dark night. The wind is starting to pick up, whistling through the spruce needles. But you are not afraid. You have a chimney. You have a stove. You have a home. The light of the Yukon afternoon is fading into a cold, pale lavender. You stand in the forest, surrounded by the tall spruce trees that have been your companions and your building materials. Now you are looking for a very specific kind of fuel. To keep your cabin warm all night, you cannot just use dry, dead wood. Dry wood burns fast and hot. It will be gone in an hour, leaving you to wake up shivering in the dark. To survive the night shift, you need green wood. This is a simple fact of history for the northern miner. Green wood is wood that is still full of sap and moisture because it was recently alive. You find the young, healthy spruce and lift your heavy felling axe. In the history of the Yukon, people learned that mixing dry wood with green wood was the secret to a slow burn. The dry wood starts the fire, but the green wood sits in the stove and smolders. It fights against the flames, burning slowly and steadily for many hours. This allows you to sleep through the night without having to get out of your warm blankets to feed the stove every hour. You are the watchman of the fire, and you must plan for the hours when your eyes are closed. You swing your axe into the trunk. Thwack. The sound is muffled by the thick green needles above you. The wood is tough and wet, making the axe feel a bit sticky as you pull it out. You work with a steady rhythm, feeling the muscles in your back and arms pull tight. You are not just cutting wood, you are gathering the batteries that will power your heater. Each log you cut is a promise of warmth for the coming night. You fell the tree and begin to chop it into short lengths that will fit into the small door of your potbelly stove. As you work, you also look for fatwood. This is a microhistory detail of a woodsman's knowledge. Fatwood is found in the stumps or joints of old spruce trees where the resin has gathered in a thick, sticky mass. It looks like dark, orange-colored wood and smells very strongly of turpentine. It is nature's own fire starter. You find a small piece and carve a few shavings with your pocket knife. Even in the dampest, coldest weather, fatwood will catch a spark and burn with a bright, smoky flame. You tuck the shavings into your pocket, feeling the sticky sap on your fingers. There is a moment of deep reflection as you stand in the quiet woods with your pile of green logs. The sun has dipped below the mountains, and the first few stars are blinking in the east. You look at the dark shape of your cabin in the distance. It looks like a small, sturdy rock in a sea of white. You think about how everything you have done has led to this moment. You have built the walls to hold the heat, the roof to trap it, and the stove to create it. Now you are gathering the lifeblood of the forest to keep that heat alive. You feel a deep sense of respect for the trees. They give you shelter, and now they give you their very life to keep you from the white death. The air is getting much sharper now. You can feel the moisture from the green wood starting to freeze on your mittens. You load the logs onto your small sled and begin the walk back to the clearing. The sled is heavy, and the runners sink into the soft snow. Cree-eek. The wood groans under the weight. You lean into the rope, your heart beating a slow, steady rhythm in your chest. You are tired, but it is a satisfied kind of tired. You have done your work well. You have prepared for the darkness. You reach the cabin and begin to stack the wood neatly by the door. You put the dry, dead branches on one side and the heavy, wet green logs on the other. You want everything to be within reach so you don't have to go outside once the sun is gone. You look at the pile of wood and feel a sense of security. It looks like a wall of safety. You are the watchman of the fuel, and your stores are full. You think about the night shift again. In the big towns, there are men whose job it is to keep the giant boilers running in the hotels and steamships. They spend their nights shoveling coal into roaring furnaces. Out here, you are the stoker, the engineer, and the captain. Your boiler is a small iron stove, and your coal is the spruce of the Yukon. It is a simpler life, but it requires just as much care. If you fail, the cold will move in, but you will not fail. You have the green wood, and you have the knowledge. As the purple light of the evening turns to a deep ink black, you carry the last of the green logs inside. You shut the heavy birch door and drop the wooden latch. Clack. The world is gone. There is only you, the smell of the spruce floor, and the cold iron of the stove. You feel a surge of pride. You have gathered your strength. You have gathered your wood. You are ready to bring the light. You sit on the floor and begin to arrange the wood inside the stove. You put the dry twigs and the fat wood shavings at the bottom. On top of those, you place a few pieces of dry spruce. Finally, you lay one large, heavy green log at the very back. This is the night log. It will wait for the fire to grow hot before it starts its long, slow burn. You reach for your matches, your heart fluttering with a bit of excitement. This is the moment your cabin becomes a home. The forest outside is silent and frozen. The wind is starting to hiss through the gaps in the trees, searching for a way in. But you have built your fortress well. You have the walls, the roof, and the green wood. You are the watchman of the Yukon, and you are ready for the fire to begin. You strike the match, and for a second, the tiny flame is the only light in the world. You touch it to the fat wood, and the night shift truly begins. The tiny flame of your match catches the fat wood shavings, and a bright orange light fills the belly of the stove. You watch as the fire spreads to the dry twigs, making a cheerful crackle and pop. A thin ribbon of grey smoke rises toward the chimney pipe, and for a moment you hold your breath. Then you hear a low, hollow whoosh as the air begins to move up the pipe. The chimney is working. The cabin is breathing. You close the iron door and listen to the fire grow. Within minutes, the cold iron begins to lose its frost, and a gentle warmth starts to push back the chill of the room. But you are not done yet. As the room warms up, you notice something. Now that the air is moving and the heat is rising, you can feel tiny, ghost-like movements of air. These are the last drafts. Even with the moss chinking and a heavy sod roof, there are still a few pinholes where the cold is trying to sneak in. This is a simple fact of building. Wood is alive, and it moves as it gets warm. In the history of the Yukon, the final step to a perfect cabin was the final mudding. You are the watchman of the tiny gaps, and you must seal them forever. You take your small tin bucket and go to your pile of river silt. You mix this earlier with a bit of water to make a thick, grey paste. You set the bucket on top of the stove for a few minutes. As the mud warms up, it becomes soft and easy to work with, like thick cream. You take a small trowel, or even just your fingers, and begin to walk around the room. You are hunting for the White Death's entry points. You hold your bare hand near the seams of the logs. If you feel even the tiniest tingle of cold, you have found a gap. You find a spot near the corner where a knot in the wood has shrunk, leaving a hole no bigger than a pea. To you, that hole is a wide open gate. You take a glob of the warm mud and press it firmly into the hole. You smooth it out until it is flush with the wood. You do this all along the base of the walls and around the frame of your new birch door. The mud feels slick and cool at first, but it dries quickly in the heat of the stove. As it dries, it turns a light, stony grey and seals the cabin as tight as a drum. There is a moment of deep silence and reflection as you work. The only sound in the room is the steady thrum of the fire and the occasional clink of your bucket against the stove. You feel a sense of incredible focus. You are making your worlds perfect. You think about how people in the South live in houses with paper-thin walls and glass windows that let in the noise of the street. Here, your walls are 10 inches of solid spruce and your seal is the very earth itself. You feel safer here than you ever did in a city. You are protected by your own work, and that is a very good feeling. You look at your hands. They are covered in the grey silt of the Yukon River. This mud has been here for thousands of years, ground down from the mountains by the ice and water. Now it is helping you stay alive. You feel a deep respect for the materials around you. Every bit of this cabin came from the land within 100 paces of where you stand. You are not just living in the Yukon, you are living with it. You have taken its wood, its moss, and its mud, and you have made a sanctuary. You move to the place where the stovepipe goes through the roof. This is the most important spot for the final mudding. You want a thick, solid ring of mud around that pipe to keep the heat from the stove from touching the wooden poles. You pack the grey paste deep into the gap, smoothing it with your fingers until it looks like a neat collar. You can feel the heat radiating from the pipe, and it makes the mud dry almost instantly. The smell of drying earth fills the room, a warm, dusty scent that reminds you of a summer garden after a rain. The night shift has truly begun now. Outside, the sun is long gone, and the temperature is dropping toward the deep, killing cold of midnight. You can hear the wind beginning to howl against the corners of the logs. It sounds like a hungry animal searching for a way in, but it finds nothing. No gaps, no holes, no thin spots. Your cabin is a solid block. You stand in the center of the room and turn around slowly. You feel no movement of air. The warmth from the stove is staying right where it belongs around you. You look at your mackinaw coat hanging on a peg. It is dry now, and the wood dust has been brushed away. You feel a sense of peace that you haven't felt since you started this journey. The heavy work is finished. The lifting, the chopping, the digging it is all behind you. You have won the battle against the elements. You have built a fortress that can stand up to anything the north can throw at it. You are the watchman of this small, warm space, and your duty is almost complete. You wash your hands in a small basin of warm water, watching the grey mud swirl away. You feel clean and strong. You look at the stove, which is now glowing a dull, soft red in the dim light. The fire is steady and quiet. You have one last thing to do before you can truly rest. You need to make your bed. You need to set up the place where you will finally close your eyes and let the cabin take over the watch. The room is golden with the light of the fire. The shadows of the logs are long and soft. You feel a deep tiredness, but it is a happy tiredness. You have built a home from the forest floor to the ridge pole. You have sealed the wind away and invited the heat in. You are the watchman of the night, and your house is ready. The cabin is now a world of its own. Inside, the air is thick with the scent of drying mud and warm spruce. You stand in the corner opposite the stove, looking at your empty sleeping space. Up until now, you have been sleeping on the hard, frozen earth or in a pile of blankets under the stars. But tonight, you are going to sleep like a king. You are going to build a raised bed. A simple fact of history in the Yukon is that you must never sleep directly on the floor if you can help it. The cold air in a cabin is like water. It sinks to the bottom. By lifting your bed just 2 feet off the ground, you stay in the layer of air that the stove has warmed. You begin by building a simple frame. You use 4 short, thick sections of a spruce log for the legs. You notch them at the top so that 2 long poles can rest across them. This is the night shift of comfort. You are not building for strength against the wind anymore. You are building for the rest of your body. You use your wooden mallet to drive the frame together. Thump. Thump. The sound is muffled by the thick walls and the soft floor of needles. It feels like the cabin is holding its breath, watching you finish your home. Across the long poles you lay a series of thin, springy willow branches. This is a micro-history detail of a miner's bed. Willow is a bendy wood. Unlike the stiff spruce, willow has a bit of give to it. By laying dozens of these thin branches side by side, you create a natural mattress that acts like a set of springs. It will keep you off the hard wood and let your tired muscles relax. You spend a long time trimming the branches with your small axe, making sure there are no sharp knots that will poke through your blankets. Next, you go to the corner where you saved the best spruce feathers. These are the softest, tiniest tips of the spruce branches for the fresh green needles. You pile them thick on top of the willow branches. You make the pile nearly a foot deep. As you lay them down, they release a sharp, clean perfume that makes your head feel light. It is the smell of the high mountains and the deep woods. You press down on the green pile with your hands. It feels bouncy and soft. This is your Yukon mattress, and it's better than any feather bed in a city hotel because you made it yourself. There is a moment of deep silence and reflection as you smooth out the green needles. You look around your room. The fire in the stove is making a soft, rhythmic hissing sound. The orange light is glowing through the small cracks in the stove door, painting long stripes across your new bed. You think about how far you have come. You think about the day you stood in the snow with nothing but a pack and an axe. Now you have a fortress. You have a warm heart in your stove. And now you have a place to lay your head. You feel a deep sense of peace. You are no longer just surviving. You are living. You pull your blankets from your pack. These are heavy, 4-point Hudson's Bay blankets made of thick, unwashed wool. They are white with stripes of red, yellow, and green at the ends. In the history of the North, these blankets were as good as money. They are so thick that they can shed water, and they stay warm, even if they get damp. You spread them over the spruce feathers, tucking the edges under the willow poles. You finish by placing your Mackinaw coat at the head of the bed to act as a pillow. You sit down on the edge of your new bed. The willow branches creak just a little bit, but they hold your weight perfectly. You feel the spring in the wood and the softness of the needles. You take off your heavy moose-hide mittens and lay them on the warm stones near the stove. You pull off your boots, feeling the wonderful relief as your feet finally get a chance to breathe. You wiggle your toes in your thick wool socks. They are a bit damp, so you hold them near the stove for a second, watching the tiny wisps of steam rise into the air. The night shift outside is in full swing. You can hear a heavy branch snap in the distance under the weight of the new snow. You can hear the wind whistling a lonely tune against the chimney pipe. But inside, everything is still. The final mudding you did has worked perfectly. There is no movement of air around your ankles. You are the watchman of this silence. You are the master of this warmth. You feel a sense of pride that is so big it almost makes your chest ache. You look at the stove. The iron is starting to turn a very dark, dull purple from the heat. You know it is time to bank the fire for the night. You reach for the heavy green logs you gathered earlier. You open the stove door, and the heat hits your face like a warm hand. You push the glowing red coals to the back and lay 2 of the thick, wet spruce logs on top. You close the door and turn the damper, a small metal handle on the pipe, to slow down the air. This will make the fire simmer all night long like a slow-burning candle. You feel a wave of tiredness wash over you. It is a heavy, sweet feeling, like you are sinking into a deep pool. You have done everything. You have built the walls, the roof, the door, the stove, and the bed. You have gathered the wood and the water. You have finished the watch. You crawl under the heavy wool blankets, feeling the scratchy warmth against your skin. The bed of spruce and willow holds you up, and the smell of the forest fills your nose. You lie there for a moment, looking up at the dark shapes of the roof poles. The cabin is quiet, but it is not empty. It is full of your hard work and your clever ideas. It is full of the life of the trees and the earth. You are safe. You are warm. You are home. You close your eyes, and as the fire hums its low, steady song, you drift toward the first real sleep you have had in a long, long time. The fire is doing its work now. You are lying under your heavy wool blankets, and the warmth of the cabin feels like a physical weight on your chest. It is a good weight. It is the weight of safety. The iron stove is no longer just a cold box of metal. It is a living, breathing thing. You can hear the green logs you put in earlier beginning to hiss as the heat finds the sap inside. In the history of the Yukon, this sound was the best lullaby a man could have. A simple fact of life in the North is that a quiet stove is a dangerous thing, but a hissing popping stove is a promise of life. You reach out one hand from under the covers and touch the air. It is not biting or sharp anymore. It is soft and dry. You look at the damper on the chimney pipe. This is a microhistory detail of your fire watching. The damper is a small metal flap inside the pipe that you can turn with a handle. By closing it halfway, you are choking the fire just enough so it doesn't eat all your wood too fast. You are the watchman of the oxygen, making sure the fire stays small and steady. If you left it wide open, the heat would all fly out the roof, and you would be cold by midnight. You watch the small lines of orange light dancing on the ceiling. Because your roof is made of dark poles and earth, the light looks like golden snakes moving through the shadows. The cabin is so quiet that you can hear the tiny tink-tink of the iron stove as the metal expands and settles in the heat. It sounds like a small clock ticking away the seconds of the night. You feel a deep sense of peace. There is no one to tell you what to do, no bells to ring, and no noise from the world outside. There is only the fire and the wood. There is a moment of deep reflection as you watch the shadows. You think about the wood you chose for this fire. You remember the weight of the axe in your hand and the smell of the fresh chips flying through the air. You think about the tree that gave itself to keep you warm. Out here, you cannot take anything for granted. Every bit of warmth was earned with a swing of the axe or a pull of the rope. This makes the heat feel much more precious. It is not just something that comes from a pipe in a wall. It is something you created. You feel a deep respect for the forest and the fire. You look at your slow match or tinderbox sitting on the stones near the stove. You hope you won't need it until morning, but you keep it ready just in case. You are always prepared. You think about the night shift workers in the southern cities, the ones who light the gas lamps or guard the banks. They have others to help them if things go wrong, but here, you are the only one. You are the watchman, the builder, and the king. You feel a strange kind of power in that. You have proven that you can take care of yourself in the hardest place on earth. The wind outside gives a sudden, sharp howl. It hits the side of the cabin with a dull thump, like a giant trying to push the walls over. But the logs do not move. The moss does not let a single breath of that wind inside. You feel the strength of your notches and the weight of your sod roof. You are inside a fortress of your own making. You pull the blankets up a little higher, tucking them under your chin. The wool is scratchy, but it is the most comfortable thing you have ever felt. You think about the white death prowling around the clearing. It is out there right now, freezing the sap in the trees and turning the river into a road of stone. It is a giant, silent enemy that never sleeps. But tonight you have won. You have built a small pocket of summer in the middle of a world of ice. You have cheated the winter. You feel a small, tired smile pull at the corners of your mouth. You have done it. You have turned a plan into a reality. The light in the room is getting dimmer as the logs settle into a bed of glowing coals. The orange glow is turning to a deep, dark red. The room is perfectly warm. Your feet are finely toasty inside your socks, and your muscles are starting to feel loose and heavy. You are drifting now, floating on the edge of sleep. The sound of the fire is a low, steady hum like a distant bee. It is a comforting sound that tells you everything is okay. You close your eyes and let the darkness wrap around you. You are not afraid of the dark anymore. In this cabin, the dark is friendly. It is the dark of a safe nest. You are the watchman of the night. But even a watchman must rest. You have built the walls and started the fire. You have set the watch. Now you can let the wood and the iron do the work for you. You take one last deep breath of the spruce-scented air and let yourself sink into the soft green needles of your bed. The Yukon night is long, but you are ready for it. The middle of the night has arrived, and the cabin is as still as a stone. You wake for just a moment, not because you are cold, but because the silence is so deep it feels like a sound of its own. You lie perfectly still under your heavy blankets, listening. The fire in the stove has settled into a steady, rhythmic breathing. You can hear the soft crackle of the green wood as the heat slowly bakes the moisture out of it. This is the night shift at its most quiet. Outside, the stars are wheeling across the sky, and the frost is growing thick on the trees. But inside your four walls, the world is held in a warm, golden balance. In the history of the Yukon, this was the time when a man felt most like the watchman of his own life. You reach out a hand and feel the air. It is still warm, held in place by the thick sod of the roof and the tight mud in the cracks. You look at the stove. The iron is no longer glowing, but you can feel the heat radiating from it in slow, invisible waves. This is a simple fact of cast iron. It holds onto the fire long after the flames have gone down. It acts like a giant warm heart, pumping life into the room. You look toward the small window of the door. Through the tiny gap of the latch-string hole, you can see a sliver of the world outside. It is a world of deep, freezing blue. You can see the moonlight hitting the snow, making it look like it is covered in millions of tiny diamonds. It is beautiful, but it is a cold beauty. It is the beauty of a land that does not want you there. But you are there. You have carved out a space for yourself. You have built a fortress that the white death cannot enter. There is a moment of deep reflection as you lie there in the dark. You think about the night shift workers back in the cities. Right now, there are men in London walking the pavements, their boots clicking on the cold stone. There are men in the great factories watching the gauges on big steam engines. They are all doing the same thing as you. They are keeping the world moving while others sleep. But your work feels more honest. Your work is for you. Every log you cut and every bit of moss you packed was for this moment of peace. You feel a deep connection to the history of all the people who have ever sat by a fire in the dark. You notice a small micro-history detail on your wall. Near the stove, the wood is so warm that a tiny bit of resin has melted and is slowly running down the log. It looks like a drop of amber in the dim light. It smells sharp and sweet, like a forest in the sun. You realize that your cabin is still alive. The wood is still moving, still breathing, and still protecting you. It makes you feel less lonely. You're not alone in this room. You are surrounded by the trees that gave themselves to be your home. The silence is broken by a sudden, loud crack from the river. It sounds like a giant whip snapping in the air. This is the ice. As the temperature drops even further toward morning, the ice on the river grows thicker and tighter until it has to break. The sound echoes up the valley, bouncing off the frozen mountains. In the city, a sound like that might scare you. But here, it is just the sound of the world doing its work. It is a sign that the winter is in charge, but it also reminds you how lucky you are to be behind your thick walls. You pull the blankets tighter around your shoulders. The wool is heavy and warm. You feel the springy willow branches of your bed pushing back against your weight. You think about how lucky you are to have a bed at all. Many men in the gold rush slept in the snow, huddled together for warmth. You have a room, a fire, and a floor made of green needles. You have done well. You are the watchman of your own comfort, and you have done your duty with honor. You feel the sleep coming back to you. It is a slow, heavy wave that starts at your toes and moves up your body. You are not worried about the fire going out. You know the green wood will last until the sun begins to peek over the ridges. You know the walls will hold. You have built this house to last, and it is doing its job. You are the watchman of the night shift, but for now, you can close your eyes. The watch is steady, the house is warm. You take one last deep breath of the air. It tastes of wood smoke and spruce. It is the best air you have ever breathed. You let your head sink back into your mackinaw pillow. The white death is still out there, prowling in the shadows, but it cannot touch you. You are safe in your wooden nest. You are the master of the Yukon night, and your world is at peace. You drift off into a dream of summer fields and warm rain, knowing that when you wake, the cabin will still be there, holding the cold bay. The very first hint of morning is starting to touch the Yukon. It is not a bright light yet, just the thinning of the darkness outside the small hole for your latch string. You wake up slowly, feeling the warmth of the blankets still wrapped tight around you. The cabin is quiet, but it is a different kind of quiet than the middle of the night. The air feels heavy and still, like the world is waiting for something to happen. You look at the stove. It is dark now and the red glow has faded to a soft grey ash, but the iron is still throwing off a gentle heat. The green wood you banked last night did its job perfectly. It burned slow and steady, keeping the frost from the corners while you slept. A simple fact of history in the Yukon is that the coldest hour is always the one just before the sun rises. This is when the white death tries its hardest to get inside. But you are ready. You are the watchman of the dawn. You reach out of your blankets and feel the logs. They're cold to the touch, but the moss between them is dry and solid. You have survived the night. You have built a home that can stand up to the greatest cold on earth. You feel a deep sense of pride as you look at the walls, the roof, and the heavy birch door. You are not just a visitor in this land anymore. You are a part of it. You climb out of bed, your feet finding the soft, dry spruce needles on the floor. You move to the stove and open the door. Inside, there is a small bed of glowing orange coals hidden under the white ash. You take a few thin shavings of fat wood and toss them in. They catch instantly, making a bright, cheerful flame that lights up your face. You add a few dry sticks, and the fire begins to roar again, hungry for the new day. The sound of the fire is the sound of victory. You have made it through the long, dark shift, and the light is coming back. There is a moment of deep reflection as you stand there watching the flames. You think about the journey you have taken. You started with nothing but an axe and a plan, and now you have a fortress. You have learned the secrets of the trees, the moss, and the earth. You have learned how to be the watchman of your own life. You feel stronger than you ever did before. You know that no matter how hard the winter gets, you have the knowledge and the tools to stay safe. You look around your small, warm room and you smile. This is your home. The sky outside is turning a pale, icy pink. You walk to the door and pull the latch string. The heavy birch door swings open, and the cold air of the morning hits you like a splash of water. It is crisp and clean. You look out at the clearing. The snow is deep and white, and the trees are covered in a thick layer of silver frost. It is a beautiful world, and it is yours. You see the smoke from your chimney pipe rising straight up into the still air, a thin grey ribbon that tells the whole valley that you are here, you are warm, and you are alive. The sun is rising over the jagged peaks of the mountains, turning the white world into a sea of gold. The shadows are disappearing, and the light is filling the valley. You feel the warmth of the first rays on your face. You take a deep breath of the cold, fresh air and let it out in a big white cloud. The night shift is over. The long hours of building and watching are finished. You have won the battle against the winter. You are the watchman of the Yukon, and your work is done. The air is getting softer now as the day begins. You feel a sense of peace that goes deep into your bones. You are safe, you are warm, you are ready for whatever the new day brings. You look back at your cabin, standing strong and steady in the morning light. It is a beautiful sight. You have built a life in the middle of the wilderness, and it is a good life. You step back inside and close the door, ready to start your day in the warmth of your own home. The world is waking up now, and the light is growing stronger with every passing minute. You can feel the heavy weight of the night lifting from your shoulders, replaced by a sense of calm and quiet joy. The cabin is filled with the golden glow of the morning, and the fire in the stove is humming a steady, happy tune. You are safe, you are tucked away, and the work of the night is finished. You can let your mind rest now, knowing that the walls you built will stay strong and the fire you started will keep the cold away. The great white silence of the Yukon is no longer something to fear. It is a peaceful blanket that wraps around your home. You are the master of this space, and everything is exactly as it should be. The long walk through the snow, the heavy lifting of the logs, and the careful packing of the moss have all led to this moment of perfect rest. You are home, and you are protected. The stars have faded, the moon has gone to sleep, and the world is bright and new. You can breathe easy now, feeling the warmth in your toes and the softness of the spruce needles beneath your feet. Your watch has been long, and you have done your duty with a brave and steady heart. Now it is time to let the day take over. The sun is rising. The gates are opening. The watch is ended.